Everybody ready, guys?
Nice.
Call to order the August 6th, 2019 Board of Commissioners. Please silence your cell phones, your pagers, electronic communication devices. Agendas are located at the back of the chambers. And if you'd like to speak on a speaker request form, please complete the form located in the back of the bookshelves and return it to Miss Holly, our office manager, to the left of the dais here. Next, we'll have a moment of silent reflection led by Commissioner DeSanto, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, we'll have the review and approval of the agenda. A motion, please.
So move.
Moved by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll have consent agenda by Miss Holly.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items. Approval of the minutes from the special four-year 2020 provisional budget meeting held on July 18th, 2019. Number 6 is to approve the order for organization and incorporation for the Stonecrest Road District as presented by the auditor. Number 7 is approval of the Adopt a Highway application for a portion of 151st Avenue by the Garbage Guys as submitted by Highway. And finally, number 8 is approval of the Adopt a Highway application for a portion of Highway 1416 by the 28th Bomb Wing Weapons as submitted by the Highway Department.
Thank you, Miss Holly. At this time, is there any members of the public who wish to remove any items 5 through 8 from the agenda? This time, is there any commissioners who'd like to remove any items 5 through 8 from the agenda?
Number 6, please.
Consent agenda. Number 6. Any others?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy?
just 7 and 8, just for recognition.
Okay. 7 and 8, LaCroy. So we have approval on number 5, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by DeSanto, second by Drews to approve number 5. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item number 6, Commissioner Drews.
Just know, this is on a road district. I don't have any problem with the road district, but for future reference on it, I don't know if we'd ever know who to get a hold of there. You can't read the signatures, and there's no names that are written out or printed out or addresses or anything associated with it. I think it'd just be advisable for in the future to have at least those names printed and if not typed, and addresses connected with them. My only concern.
Any other discussion? Not a motion, please.
I'd move approval.
Moved by
Second.
Drews, second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Seconded by LaCroy.
Sorry, you guys sound the same. Motion by Drews, second by LaCroy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 7 and 8, Commissioner LaCroy.
We can vote on these together. I just pulled these for recognition that volunteers to help clean up the highway. I just like to, instead of consenting them, give them the recognition they need. That takes a lot of volunteer time and saves the county a lot of money, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner LaCroy. Any other discussion under 7 and 8?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeSanto.
I would agree with Commissioner LaCroy, and I would move to approve.
Moved by DeSanto,
Second.
second by LaCroy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Regular agenda items 9 through 17. Number 9, minutes of regular meeting. There just needs to be a clarification. Superintendent
Good morning, Commission. Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway Superintendent. Yeah, reading the minutes, we were having our crews gonna go out there and fix Jim Street there, and Mark caught clarification on the minutes here. I got those here somewhere. Anyways, the minutes read to bring the road up to speed, just to get some clarification and some on those minutes. We would like a motion to basically bring that road up to a safe and drivable condition. You know, if we want to add gravel or anything like that to it, it's on the agenda later later in the meeting to add it to the secondary highway system. But we just wanted to add some clarification to those minutes.
Okay. Is there a motion or discussion?
I would make that motion.
Okay. Motion to amend 13C from minutes dated July 16th to read the follows: to place gravel on the Jim Street from Pioneer Drive west of .07 miles to improve the street to a safe and drivable condition, and direct highway staff to prepare a resolution to add Jim Street to the county highway system, and further move to approve the July 16th, 2019 minutes as amended. Get all that, Carrie? Okay.
I'll second that.
Been a motion by DeSanto, if I'm correct, and second by LaCroy. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All right.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, Ron Jeffries, General Manager of the Fairgrounds.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Ron Jeffries, General Manager of Central States Fair and the Black Hills Stock Show. Although it's rally week, and thank you all for recognizing that with your wardrobes today, as soon as the roar of the motorcycles come to a close, 5 days later, we start the 74th Central States Fair. We start August 16th through the 25th. We start it with a ribbon cutting on Friday the 3rd, and that's Friday the 16th at 3 o'clock, excuse me. And so we'd like to invite you all to make that event if you could. We'd be glad to have you there, and I'm assuming that someone will be available to speak at that event as well for the ribbon cutting. So I'll let you decide who that's going to be. Also, then we've got that night Supercross races. Everything from Pee-wees to the pros will be coming in. Rapid City has become quite a motorcycle racing area. Yeah. We've got, in addition to the flat track races tonight that we play a minor role in assisting their preparation, we host 5 motorcycle races throughout the winter in a series. And that develops a lot of travel from as far away as Canada to come and race in Rapid City. And that really broadens our base for our summertime race as well. So we're excited to host that event on Friday the 16th. Saturday the 17th, we've got the Mountain States Ford Demolition Derby, always a well-attended event, one of our largest events. We've got a new event in that we're going to take little front-wheel drive cars, and there's going to be one round of front-wheel drive cars that won't compete with the big ones. It'll be its own little mini derby in the middle of the Demolition Derby. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cleanup after that particular heat. Then we start on Sunday night, we start our Black Hills Energy concert series. And we've got Big and Rich, Chris Jansen, and Chase Rice as headliners. Should be a great event for us, a great series of concerts. On July 31st, we had our single biggest day of pass sales ever coming into this year. Everything seems like it's a little late, but we got to that last day and had a mad rush. General admission passes and premier passes are still available. They're available at Family Fair Centers and at the Central States Fair office or online at centralstatesfair.com. I'll mention on that Tuesday, we are also hosting the Rapid City Chamber Mixer, and we'd like to invite you to that. The Chamber Mixer is hosted this year by Fisher Beverage, Coors, and Robert Sharp & Associates. Robert Sharp & Associates celebrating their 30th year in business, and 23 of those representing Central States Fair. It will be held in the Coors tent starting at 5:30 with the normal Chamber of Commerce registrations required. Then we go into our first night of PRCA Rodeo, and it's the first of 3 nights. But in between those 3 nights of PRCA Rodeo, on Tuesday the 22nd, we're introducing a new event, and not only new to Central States Fair, but new to the PRCA. The PRCA a number of years ago started the Extreme Bulls competition, where rather than having an entire rodeo, they had just bull riding. And they've held that event at the Winter Rodeo here during the Black Hills Stock Show for several years. That event concludes with the finals in Ellensburg, Washington. Last year at the WNFR, the Wrangler National Finals, the bull riding champion won $100,000 more than the saddle bronc champion. And it's mostly because they had these extra opportunities to participate in events. Well, a year ago, the PRCA approved having Extreme Saddle Broncs as its own standalone event. And as those events started to grow and they had more of them, we approached the PRCA with the concept of having Rapid City as the finals to the PRCA Extreme Broncs Tour. We were granted that opportunity for the first 4 years of the contract, and we're super excited. It's televised on CBS Sports. It's a $50,000 payout. It will be the single biggest day in saddle bronc history because it'll bring the top 24 competitors, and all of those competitors need to show up at the event because these monies count towards the Wrangler National Finals. So if you're anywhere close, you got to protect your spot. If you're past the bubble, you got to get here because the National Finals only takes the top 15. We'll feature the top 24 at this event, so it should be an absolutely outstanding night of saddle bronc riding here, and we're super excited to be chosen as the host site for that. We'll conclude with 2 nights of PRCA rodeos. And of course, I'll mention that we've got Carnival Americana, we've got open class exhibits, we've got all kinds of fun things going on grounds, including the German tent with a number of different games and activities, and always a draw in and of itself. Super excited to host this event, and we appreciate the opportunity the Pennington County Commissioners have given Central States Fair to be the producers of this event. So thank you, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ron. I love the fair. I love everything about it coming since I was a kid. I always got excited in August because I always thought, oh, the fair's coming. And then you learn more and more as a commissioner about the behind the scenes, and it's a lot of work. Your staff does an amazing job. They work their butt off. I'm going to say that word. And bringing the Extreme Broncs here that's pretty awesome. Watching the rodeo already and the different events that we have are pretty cool, but adding one more to it that's actually bringing more people into South Dakota. People don't understand a lot of times how the fairgrounds is a big economic driver. So I'm pretty excited about all the concerts. I went to Big and Rich before, and if you, they're very much a concert that's into recognizing veterans and basically the flag and red, white, and blue and who we are in the United States. So I think it's pretty cool, the whole event, and just the entertainment they give you too is pretty funny. So I'm pretty excited about the fair this year, and you're adding more events, so that's pretty cool. Ron, thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Ron, I'm going to reflect a little bit back on the history of growing up in Rapid City and seeing how far the fairgrounds has come. I mean, Jim Kerstaff building, the pavement, grandstands, and I mean, if a person reflects back to what it used to be like and where it's at now, it's come a long ways, and it's looking very, very good. And you guys have done an exceptional job of bringing it up through the years. And I think it's one of the outstanding things that we have in Rapid City.
Thank you.
Any other
Madam Chair.
discussion? Commissioner
Ron, I
Roskinek.
think the fair is better than the rally, just for what it's worth. Thank you for doing a great job and keep up the good work.
Did we get that in the minutes?
I don't think that reflects with his
It's
shirt.
more fun than me.
His shirt's not reflecting that today. Just kidding.
I need a fair shirt next meeting.
That's right.
Commissioner Drews.
Ron, we even have family that come out for this event from Sioux Falls. They just think that it's the best fair going, and I would agree with that. The entertainment is superb. And for those that like rodeo, it's great. So congratulations to both of you and the staff for being able to pull this off each year, making things bigger and better. Just thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Next, we have items from the auditor, Miss Cindy.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Moeller, Pennington County Auditor. Before you this morning, we have a transfer of a retail on-sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license, and also a transfer of retail on-off sale wine and cider license from Crooked Creek Resort and RV Park owned by J&J Bar Resorts to Larson's Crooked Creek Resort owned by Larson's Recreational Properties.
Thank you. Do we have a motion or discussion?
So move.
Moved by Ron
Second.
Rossman, second by Drews. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item B, Miss Cindy.
This is a new retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for High Country Guest Ranch owned by Ventures in the Hills LLC. Ask approval of that new license.
Do you have a motion or discussion, please?
Question.
Question by Drews.
Where is this located, Cindy? Do you know?
I see the address on there, but that means nothing to me. I'm not familiar with that area.
I believe it's the same owners as the Crooked Creek. They're out on the Deerfield Road,
Oh, okay.
about
Oh,
three
okay.
miles. That's where Brule used to play a few years ago.
Okay.
It's cool.
Thank you.
piece.
I'd
Is there a
move
motion?
approval.
Motion
Second.
by Drews, second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Miss Cindy, the 2020 budget direction?
Yes, we have approved the provisional budget. And then there was one change that we do need a motion for to change on that provisional budget, which was to reduce the Register of Deeds budget by $21,098 for the part-time person that she is not going to have next year.
So we'll take that motion and then we'll have discussion on any other changes or anything else we need Cindy to do, if that's okay. So the motion is to reduce the Register of Deeds 2020 budget by $21,098 as requested.
I'd make that motion.
Motion by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroy. Any other discussion on that motion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And then any other questions for Miss Cindy, please?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeSanto.
I've been going over the budget over and over and over and over again, and the tremendous increase that we've had in the budget is a lot. And I'd like to request that Cindy look at eliminating a cost of living increase this year. The national inflation rate has been practically nothing. I don't know about South Dakota, but I think it's pretty low as well. And I'm fine with step increases, but I think that we need to take a look at just eliminating the cost of living increase and see
I
what
can
that
bring that
does.
number back next meeting.
Pardon me?
I will bring that number back to you next meeting.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We had a discussion this morning, and Commissioner Drews brought up a good point on revenues instead of budget for percent for reserves. Can you explain that? I think that was a good question and something to look into. That was very positive.
That was after the discussion with the bond rating company, that is how they look at our reserves numbers. So I will be going back and calculating the projected fund balance unassigned or assigned reserves versus our next year's revenue, because that's how they look at it when they do their bond ratings.
Any questions on that or concerns? No. Okay. That'd be something else we're looking into. Commissioner LaCroy or Commissioner
No,
Roskinek?
I agree with Mark. I think hearing that number and we'll see where it'd be is good to know. That's not to say we're making any motions today, just gathering information.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Roskinek, do you have anything that you would like Commissioner or Ms. Cindy to look at?
The only thing, Cindy, where we're at right now, where are we at on our reserve percentage?
Right now, the way I have it calculated, we would be looking at 14.75%.
And Gary and I talked a little bit about this. Is there a magic number, where you should be? I mean,
To
I
have to
think we were
do
at
some more
19.
discussion with the bond rating council and go through some of their documents to see if there is a magic number to help keep our bond ratings where they are.
That's the only question I had. Thanks.
I
Not,
think,
sorry,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
I think, Commissioner Ross Connector, I think that part of that is trying to get in line with what like Moody bases it on. And what we've based the percentage on in the past is based on budget, percentage compared to budget. And what they do is, what they talk about is percentage based on revenue, expenditures versus revenue. So I think, and Cindy's willing to break that out and provide us those numbers, and I think that may reflect a little bit closer as to what we need to be looking at in the future.
And then if anybody has anything in between, Cindy can send us those things that you're looking at as well. You can ask her questions in between, and then when she comes back, she'll send a report of what everybody sent and what those numbers were. So if you can't think of it today, that doesn't mean you can't still bring it up. Okay?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LeCourt.
Just one clarification that when I started talking about bond rating, that we have almost the highest bond rating that you can get.
The last time that they did a
Last
bond
time they
rating
did
was
it.
in 2017, and yes, we did.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Anything else?
I just wanted to bring that up.
That's okay. You're good.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeSanto.
Cindy, for the public, you might explain what the bond rating means for the county.
It means better interest rates on our bonds, which then reduces the cost of our repayment, and so it helps the taxpayers as well.
Thank you.
Nice. Okay, that was a discussion. I don't think we need a motion for that. I think that was just discussion to move it forward to September 3rd. Like I said, anything else that might come to mind, please send it to Cindy. And then she will refer it to all of us to make sure we're all on the same page of where we're going, so.
Madam Chair, will we be discussing this at the next actual meeting in August before the actual
Actually,
budget hearing
you're-
in September?
So the August 20th, is that, yes, I apologize, not September 3rd. The September 3rd is basically, we can make it the final on September 3rd. If not, the adoption of the final county budget, if not complete on September 3rd, can be the 17th or the 30th. Can you explain that for us, Ms. Holly? Because it says two different deadlines.
No, it just means that at the next regular meeting of August 20th, you have the option to give additional direction to have discussion. By statute, your required public hearing to address the budget is September 3rd.
Okay,
Our next meeting after that is September 17th. That can be the final if the board is ready. If they are not legally by statute, you have to approve it by September 30th. So we can schedule special meetings after that.
just so the public knows for their information and our commission. Thank you for doing that, Ms. Holly.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Commissioners.
Thank you. So number 12 is items from the sheriff, firearms sales bidding award.
Morning, Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. I provided you a memo and had this in front of you before about surplusing the weapons and putting them out to bid, and you have the bids in front of you, and the motion is to accept the bid from First Stop Inc. to purchase weapons, and we use the proceeds to purchase additional firearms and security for our special response team.
So is there a motion or a discussion?
Just a quick question. I presume that the only bidders can be those that hold federal firearms licenses.
Correct, that was one of the stipulations. You had to what they call FFL.
Right, okay. I'd make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Drews, second by DeSanto. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Items from Building Grounds, Central States Fairgrounds Stalling Barn Project, authorized to advertise for bids.
Good morning, Mike Cool, Buildings and Grounds Director. Bid documents for the Central States Fairgrounds Stalling Barn Project are nearing completion. Should have them wrapped up early next week. This project will construct approximately a 122 foot by 122 foot pre-engineered metal building south of Barn 8, which is located on the west side of the James Kirkstead Event Center. This project, the project will have a water service and a dry fire sprinkler system that will be wrapped into barn number 8 as well. This is a code requirement. The building will not be heated in general, but we do have a small area in the building that will have some heat in regard to the water service that serves that fire sprinkler system. Right now, I'll note one additional item, a minimal amendment to the fairgrounds existing conditional use permit is required. We produced the documents, submitted that, and it was approved on July 18th, July 10th. So that portion has been taken care of, so it's ready to go out to bid and be permitted. The estimated cost for the project overall, including administrative design, building, and site construction and contingency costs, will fit within the funding that we have identified for the project, which is $950,000. That funding comes from 3 sources. The Vision Funds, which was committed by the city a couple of years ago, I believe, for $550,000. Buildings and Grounds CIP 2019 Capital Improvement Funds, $200,000. And the Central States Fair is contributing $200,000. One thing I want to point out is the design team that we have involved in the project have donated partial or all of their services to help make this possible and keep costs down. I want to thank Albertson Engineering, Upper Deck Architects, West Plains Engineering. They all donated part of their design services for this. And Long Branch Civil Engineering donated all of their site design services to the project. I thank them for that. Our anticipated schedule for the project, the bid opening would be scheduled for September 10th at 2 o'clock. We anticipate that the contract would be awarded on September 17th, and construction start would probably be in early October with a completion in May of 2020. With board authorization, I will advertise for bids. Are there any questions?
Mr. Cool, shift allocated jail project fund 2020 CIP budget. I think people had questions on that last time. If you can explain what that means.
All it means is that how we've allocated funding for contributing to pay for projects underway. There's a substantial amount of work that has to occur in 2020 yet relative to the jail project, so it is possible to shift that work into the 2020 capital improvement budget. So this we'd be utilizing part of the funds for this project sooner than we would need to use it for that jail project. So that's why I'm looking at doing it this way.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
discussion. Commissioner Roskinick.
Mike, was that originally going to be post frame, that building?
This is going to be a pre-engineered metal building.
Okay, so tapered steel.
Yep, metal frame construction with a concrete foundation and steel panels.
And what are the sidewalls? What height will the sidewalls be?
I believe the sidewalls are 12 feet. Remember that off the top of your head? 12? Yeah.
John Kaiser, if you'd like to come up and introduce yourself, and Ron Jeffries.
Apologize,
Or
I
just
just
have
don't
John
recall
do
right
it.
off the top of my head what we had those set at. I believe it was.
John, you name
John
it.
Kaiser, Central States Fair, 12 foot.
Okay, yeah, some of those steel packages, they come out of Nebraska, and you can get some really good deals on those steel packages if you can find a good contractor. And I assume that cost is going to include all the site work too?
Yes, site work is, John has worked on, actually, he has gotten some fill materials that will be required for the project donated already to Pennington County. And I think he continues to work on some of those things, but
About
yes, it
half-
does include the
about
site
half.
work.
I think you'll like the tapered steel more so than the,
Yeah, this is, I would consider this a better building than just a pole barn, which would be a wood post frame construction.
thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Mike, at what point in time do we expect that we need that $200,000 back for the jail project?
Excuse me?
2021? The 200,000 that we're moving from the jail project, when will we need that back for the jail project?
In 2020, the project, I've allocated, as long as our budgets are approved for next year, they are buildings and grounds capital improvement project fund. I've allocated funding for it from that, $800,000. So that will be covered in the 2020 budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner LaCroy.
My only question is, yeah, it looks like a pretty aggressive construction project, and given the weather that we've had and some of the construction that is going on in the community, it's a good possibility that these bids could come back higher than what we'd really like to see, whether, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
if we could wait, we may get a better deal, even if it's just a few months. I mean, when you get into the fall, this is just a question. I mean, I understand this is to go out for bids to see what we're getting, but I'm just saying,
What we anticipate happening is that the project would get underway in October, and our expectation is that we get the foundation system prepared in the ground, and then there would not be any additional work probably till after the stock show, when they would probably start erecting. We're leaving that open to the contractor for, let them do it, but we do have the erection of the building can be done fairly quickly, but we've given it a little extra time to try and make this as appealing a project as possible for.
just to follow up, I guess my comment was twofold, is it's pretty aggressive, the weather and so forth, but also the availability of contractors to do it, and the bidding process I mean, everybody's pretty busy out there right now. And we could come back, and a lot of times when bids come back, if they don't really want it, they're gonna, or if they increase it high enough, I'm just throwing that out there. Is that something as a commission we should be aware of? That if,
Yes.
just because these bids come back, don't mean we have to take them at that point.
That is correct. We do not need to take them if they exceed the funding available. Our desire has been, and one of the drivers behind this is utilizing the vision funds that are available. They've been allocated for some time already. Concerns are that if we don't move forward, that they could be redistributed someplace else, although our agreement does not say that at this time. But so our desire is to have it bid and underway if possible. We do have that option if they came back too high, that we could rebid it again in the winter.
Okay.
Anything else, Commissioner LaCroy?
Nope.
I agree with Commissioner LaCroy, sorry, Gary. But when we did the bidding, that's why we did it, where we can at least get the footings down or the concrete down, and that way they can do it on their schedule, basically, instead of, this has got to be done by January. It gives them more time in between to work on it, because a lot of the construction projects, they're going from one job to one job to one job, so they're piecing it together anyway. So I thought that we didn't have to get it done till May, so that actually made it more appealing. So it gives them many months to finish that project instead of we have a deadline in 2 months, we need this done. The other thing is this barn means a lot to the fairgrounds, and maybe Ron and John can think of or tell the areas where this is used, but it's huge. And the driving force was Dean Johnson because of his horses and different things, but it's more than just that. It's what we can use this barn for many events to increase the funding and the things that happen at the fairgrounds for economics. So bottom line is we've been waiting 2 years, 6 months to try to get this moved forward, and now we'd like to at least try to get this done, get it done after the stock show, and start using that barn as soon as possible. Is Dean Johnson and the boards, uh, if I can speak for them, to get this going. So I think it'll be pretty exciting for the fairgrounds to have another stalling barn. They've always wanted one close to the event center. What that does for the events in that center is huge. So I appreciate the questions, and I do agree with Commissioner LaCroix on that. But hopefully with the bids, we can, that would be helpful because it's more appealing because the project's not I gotta get it done in 2 months.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Just to follow up, we've had some good discussions on this, and I appreciate being part of the board this year and getting to meet some of the board members. We've got some pretty strong personalities in there, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's why when I come to a meeting, I'd hear one thing, and there was a lot of discussion that confused me, because that's why I asked some questions of where we're going. I got the letter of support from the board the other day there. Everybody's in agreement. And I just had some questions the last go around. If this is what we need, this is what we need to do. And got some good businessmen on there. You really do. And some strong personalities, and they'd like to see things a little bit different. And they don't quite realize how government works and why we have to do things a certain way. They don't quite get that part, but it's understandable. But I think they did a good job.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews and then Commissioner Roskinick.
I'll-
Commissioner
I'll,
Drews.
I'll wave to Ron because I was gonna make.
I was just wondering if maybe Ron could go over the dynamics, the economics of this, because you got so many stalls, they generate so much in the evening, and so sounds like a really good income generator, especially as the fair grows each year.
Thank you. The big draw for our facility is the big floor space we have in the James Kerr Event Center. Brings horses from all over the country. A lot of those horses come from the south, and when they come from the south and it's later in the year, the hair isn't long on those horses. They're too short. They're not used to our winters, and quite frankly, it's a detriment for them to travel to South Dakota. Part of the idea of building this barn and building it close to the event center is to give them that opportunity to be close, short times outside, back in, and bring more of those southern competitors up here during the winter. Stalling is one of our major sources of income year in and year out. It's probably, I'm going to rank it just off the cuff, but it's probably within our top 5 economic draws for just the fairgrounds property, stalling. We operate just like what I call a horse hotel. So the more people we get to come for events, the more horses that they bring, the bigger it is for us in terms of payday at the end of the deal. Also, during that wintertime, when those horses are stalled inside the barn, those people aren't camping in their trailers. They're camping, they're staying in hotels, which is good for all of Rapid City, all of Pennington County. And that's true on a lot of events, even during the summer months. We had a team roping down there over the 4th of July, and there was over $250,000 in cash and prizes at a team roping. I mean, that's a big deal. You're not going to find 2 6'2" cowboys sleeping together in the nose of a trailer before they go out and compete for $250,000. They're well fed and well rested when they come to those events. So it's a big improvement for the fairgrounds, and we appreciate the support.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Roskinick?
What was the nightly, 25 a night, something like that?
So our stalls rent for $25 a night. Yeah. Which with the hotel situation, the way it is in Rapid City, last year during the stock show, you could get a hotel room for $49. So $25 on a stall was a pretty big coup on our end.
Yep, excellent.
Commissioner Drews?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to authorize advertisement of the Central States Fairgrounds Stalling Barn project with a bid opening scheduled for September 10th.
Motion by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroy. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Motion carries.
opposed, motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews?
I know that on a couple of instances, even on the 2020 budget and on the Stalling Barn, we talked about our meeting on September 17th. I just want to point out, we've moved that meeting to September 20th because of the county organization annual convention during that week.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, John Kaiser and Mike Cool and Cale McDowell, putting a lot of time and energy to move this forward, and the board and everybody. But John Kaiser and Mike Cool have had many, many meetings off the backside of this just to try to get these numbers and get these things done. And we appreciate everything you've done, Mike and John, to do the work, and Mr. Ron for moving this forward as well with the board. We did get them all on the same page. It took us a bit, as Commissioner DeCroy says, we love them all. But yeah, they have a lot of my personality on that one. So,
Nothing wrong with debate. Thank you.
but you know what? They get some stuff done, and a lot of the people at the fairgrounds, they do a lot of volunteer. Those same board members do volunteer a lot of stuff, and I forget that sometimes, of their time and energy to get things done at that fairground. So we appreciate them. Thank you. Number 14 is items from equalization.
Good morning, Shannon Rittberger, Director of Equalization. Have an abatement request that comes to you from my office. It is a trailer house that burned down. The abatement request is for 5 of 12 months that the trailer house didn't exist.
Is there a motion or discussion?
Move
Make a
for
mo-
approval.
I'll second.
Who had made the motion? Sorry.
Mark?
Mark DeSanto. Commissioner DeSanto made the motion. Ross Connect second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 15, items from,
Can I add a couple of comments?
no. Yes, yeah.
I don't have to. I just want to point out that I work with Jerome, fire coordinator, to find as many as these as he knows about anyways. This one, he didn't know about. It was in town, one of the few fires he doesn't go to. And so we found out about it later. But normally when a building burns down, he gives that information to me, and I just create the abatement request there. The owner doesn't even know about it. The owner's got other things to worry about and isn't thinking about property taxes. So we try to catch as many as we can.
Thank you, Shannon.
And our my staff does the same thing when they see something in the newspaper or on the news or something. Then we try to get ahead of that as much as we possibly can anyways.
Nice. Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
You know I had to tease you.
Always on top of things, Shannon. I like it.
Item A is Resolution 2019-08-6 of Longview Road speed limit.
Good morning, Commission. Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway. In front of you here is a resolution to increase the speed limit from Anderson Road to Radar Hill Road from 35 back to 45. Speed limit was changed by resolution back in 2015. Some of you guys may remember that.
Yep.
It was changed from 50 down to 35. We did some traffic counts on, I don't remember the dates on those. Looks like June 25th through July 1st. Those traffic counts show that 89% of traffic are exceeding the speed limit of 35. The 85th percentile speed limit or speed of those travelers are 45 miles an hour. This is normally what we try to base our speed limits off of. The area is generally flat with very good sight distance. There's very little development that has happened there in the last 4 or 5 years. There is land for sale. I believe this parcel here is for sale, and this is all pasture land. We're asking to pass this resolution until there is further development in that area. If it hasn't happened in the last 4 years, we're not sure what the what's going to happen in the future, but until that time, it's kind of a speed trap right now. People are doing over the speed limit as is, so.
Just one thing, if you remember, guys, speaker request forms are in the back. If you'd like to speak on the item in case we missed, or you'd like to speak on any item. So, we do, if I'm correct, sir, did you want to speak on this item? That's why I said that. Nope, not today. Just so you remember, we'll let you go ahead and come up and speak, sir, and kind of tell us. I know your wife was one of the ones that brought forward the 35 miles per hour back in the day, sir. I'm going to go ahead and let him speak, Joe, if that's okay.
Yep.
And your name, sir?
My name is Dan Mullally. May I pass something out here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Dan Mullally, I live at 6390 Longview, and if you look at that map I printed out, there's a pin about a third of the way from the left. And as Commissioner Hadcock said, we spoke in favor of lowering the speed limit. Just to give you a little history, most of you weren't here, but it was 50 miles an hour from Murphy Estates, Ranch Estates, which is the circle off to the left there all the way. And what happens is when people hit that transition from 35 to 50, they would speed up in anticipation of that, and that would create a noise and speeding. And so that's my concern, because this change is about a third of the mile from me, and I'm afraid the same thing may happen. People will know, well, the speed limit's going to increase, and so then we get increased noise, speeding. And the other thing and by the way, when we went to 35, the result was dramatic. It was just a huge decrease in traffic and noise. And my theory, and this is what I brought up when we presented earlier, is people are using Longview as a shortcut rather than going down to 44, which is the green vertical one. And that's another one of my concerns, is that now people will start using Longview as a thoroughfare. And so my thoughts, and hopefully this will help you come to a decision better at that point of view, is that the quality of life in our neighborhood has improved so much with the change now, and I'm afraid we're going to take a step back. So I would like to see it either remain the same or maybe a more modest increase up to, say, 40 miles an hour. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to speak from the public on this issue,
Madam Chair.
or have any questions for Mr. Mullally?
Dan, where's your home at on this?
Right here.
Purple dot?
There's a purple
okay,
pin
okay.
mark, right.
Okay.
And so you can see to the right of that is Anderson Road. That's about 0.3, 0.4 miles. So we're in the 35 mile an hour speed limit right now, and so that part won't change. I acknowledge that.
So, Superintendent Miller, do you have the counts from before? Because the decrease, they might be going 45, but maybe the decrease in traffic, like Mr. Mullally, is true. But the only thing I saw in there was the 2019 traffic counts.
I don't know. I did not grab those. Mark, did you happen to grab those?
Okay.
Unfortunately, no, we did not grab those.
And do you have an issue with going from 35 to 40 instead of 45? Would that be, is there a detriment to that? Is there something that would cause any issues with us?
I don't feel that there's any issue, just that, with the speed limit at 35 now, people are almost going, 10, 11 miles an hour over it as is, so if you increase it to 40, are they going to do 50? Because you catch yourself driving down the interstate, you're comfortable with that 10 mile an hour over, but you're not really comfortable with that 12, 13 mile an hour over, so.
But how about I guess, to me, if it decreased in traffic, meaning if I'd rather go to the faster road than I would the 35 road, that's why I said it'd make a difference to see the traffic count from the last 2 years of decrease. Do you see what I'm saying?
Correct.
Because it might have changed because of that, like Mr. Mullally said, because people, they might be going 45 now, but before they were going 50, and maybe because they know they're supposed to be going 35 or in that area, that they would go to a different road instead of his, Longview Road.
I think a lot of people still, there's a lot of development up in this area up here, and a lot of those people use Longview to get down to 44 as well instead of taking Radar Hill down to 44. It is definitely a shortcut. Let me see if I can pull up the traffic counts here from. So the traffic count in 2015, right in front of Crane Drive, which would be about a quarter mile from Mr. Mullally's place here, the average daily count was 2576. Where is it here? So, and then
2576 to,
so there were total in 7 days, there were 12,706 vehicles total.
you see what I'm saying?
2287. So it's a very slight decrease. Could be time of year, it's pretty comparable to what it was in 2015.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
I'm just reflect back. I used to live on this map, the furthest closest to Radar Hill Road many years ago, and I've never would have taken Radar, and I lived in the mobile home part up there towards the top, right, you down a little bit, off of, right there is where I lived. So actually, if I wanted to, I could have taken Radar Hill Road, and I never did. It was always off of 44 Longview coming down. Now I'm trying to remember, because when I first got in the commission, I heard a concern of people wanting the speed limit raised because it went down along those lines. But I think the reasons why the speeds stay lower down there, and there's a stop sign at the isn't there a four-way stop off of Longview? And so from there, then it takes a while. I mean, people just don't take off and hit 45 or 35. It's a gradual. And you're saying from that stop sign, your development is where? Right there?
Right here is, I believe that's Mr. Mullally's place right here.
Okay, that's his. So where's that stop sign? Further down, right there?
A stop
Okay.
sign here at
Stop
Reservoir,
sign.
and then the proposed change would be here at Anderson. And there's only one stop sign controlling traffic
One, okay,
coming north off of Anderson onto Longview.
okay,
And then the next stop sign is down here on Radar Hill.
okay. I just want to post my thoughts. I drove that every day for I don't know how long, and there was a long stretch, and quite frankly, I don't remember what the speed limit was back then. That was 20 years ago, so.
Is there something you can do with the long stretch where you could put 45 and then in between those two stop signs, leave it at 35, 40? Can you do that, or is that not?
Right now, the proposed is 35 from the stop sign. It would actually be 35 from when you get off of 44, you come to a stop sign
Okay,
here at Reservoir, and then 35 from there to Anderson here,
okay.
and then from Anderson to Radar Hill, we're 45.
Did you understand that, Mr. Mullally?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
it's
I
more,
read the,
it's more open space there. It seems to make sense for the increase there because of the open space more.
right. As I said, my concern is either upstream or downstream of that, depending on which way traffic is coming. And from what we've seen when it was 35 and then went to 50 is that people will speed up, and then you get a lot of noise, especially with Harleys and other loud vehicles. And I'm just afraid that will filter down, that distance to where I'm at. And there's some bicycle traffic and horse traffic that's also a concern on that road. There's no shoulder. So
That's true.
I
I
do
forgot
ride
that.
bicycle, and I actually get kind of scared. When it was 50, I wouldn't even bother, but I've started to again. And the shortcut is somewhat perceived, if I can continue just for a second here.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the distance, it is about 3 times the distance if you go down to 44. However, when you get to 44, you can go quite a bit faster.
Madam
So
Chair.
in terms of a trip to town, it's probably insignificant.
Commissioner DeSanto.
I went out and drove it 3 or 4 times over the past week and drove 35 down Longview, and then went on past and took 44, which you can do 65. That's the speed limit on 44, and it saved an entire minute and a half to go to 44. You got to where Longview intersects 44. It saved a whole minute and a half going out to 44.
How fast were you going?
In both cases, I was doing the speed limit.
I'm teasing you.
And frankly, I drive that road all the time, and sometimes I take Longview just because it's 35 miles an hour, just to kind of relax and drive along. I don't think that increasing the speed limit is necessary, just because, if you're in a hurry, drive out to 44 and do 65 down 44. Why turn on Longview where, as Dan pointed out, there is no shoulder? Go flying down Longview. I know that people are not, because I drive it all the time, people are not paying attention to that speed limit, and they are doing 45. But what I'd recommend is getting Highway Patrol out there to do a little increased presence and get people to slow back down to 35 again. A minute and a half. Come on. I guess get up a little earlier or something. I don't know. Leave for your appointment earlier or what have you. But I just don't see the need to. And I agree with Dan. I know for a fact that that's what's going to happen. They're gonna start increasing their speed before they get to that 45 mile an hour sign. That's just the way human nature is.
So Joe, what is before you hit, on your Longview past the open space, what is the speed limit after that on the road going north?
On Radar Hill here,
Yes.
that's 50 mile an hour.
How about to the north of it or straight ahead? Like if I kept
Oh,
going straight?
back to the east, I
Yes.
believe it turns to 50.
Okay. So maybe it would be a nice compromise, do 35 to 40 to 50. Mr. Miller said he's not opposed to doing the 40 as a compromise between the two, and it still suffices both of, the conversation that we're talking about today.
And I would like to bring up that the point from Reservoir to Anderson Road, I failed to bring that with me, so I had our traffic sign manager bring that with, or send that to me here. The 85th percentile speed on that portion of Longview is 42 miles an hour. And then, so the mean on that one is 37. The 85th percentile is, like I said, 43 miles an hour.
So you're going up to about 40 in that area anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
if it's 35 now and they're going 42, 43, if it's 45, they're going to be going 52, 53. That's just the pattern I see, and I can't, that's hard to swallow on that particular road. Also, if the B21's on the drawing board, and I can only assume that this area is going to see some growth in the future, and then we're going to be going right back, adjusting the speed limit. So I'm kind of with Mark. I like that 35.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I would move to deny the increase in speed.
Okay, it's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ross Connect. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joseph, next one.
The next one, Golf Course Road, comes to you at the request of a resident. We went out and did some traffic counts on it, if I can get to it here. So this is the same scenario. Currently, the speed limit from Stone Drive here to Highway 40 is 35 miles an hour. The resident is actually requesting to decrease the speed from Golf Course or Stone Drive to the section line here from 50 down to, he requested down to 35, but after looking at the traffic data and closer matching to the 85th percentile, the 40 mile an hour through the whole stretch, so you don't have a speed change in one speed change in a mile's time there would closer fit that.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
Joe, I
DeSanto.
was a little confused because I was looking at a map on my computer yesterday, and it showed that what we have labeled as Golf Course Road is actually 239th, and Golf Course Road is this black road down here on the map that I was looking at yesterday. So it kind of confused me. I'm familiar with the area. Does Golf Course Road bend and go on back up to Highway 240?
That's a good question. Maybe Mark can answer that. I don't know.
Do you know what I'm saying, Mark? The black line down here on the map that I was looking at online, this is Golf Course Road, and this is 239th that runs into Mettler Lane.
Okay, Mark Schock, Pennington County Highway. Actually, Mr. DeSanto, Golf Course Road does go east and west off of 240, and then it does go north and south.
Oh,
It ties back into Sage Creek Road,
Okay.
just a mile
Yeah,
east of 240.
The north-south is what I'm familiar with as as Golf Course Road. So maybe they don't have the sign going this way. I think says 239.
236, it looks like up
36,
on Google here. I can see
Okay.
see what you're
So
talking about
that
now.
answers my confusion. It continues on.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Okay, yes, on the highway system, it is Golf Course Road, east-west, and then north-south.
Okay.
All right, I was confused with the question there.
Thank you for that clarification.
So as I said, the traffic counts indicate the 85th percentile speed is about 44 miles an hour. So to get I guess the best of both worlds and make them meet one speed for that entire mile, we're suggesting to change the speed limit to 40 miles an hour on that stretch. And
Okay.
Madam
Yep.
Chair. And Joe, they're building houses there by James Avenue, Gloria Street, Kelly, and Stone Drive. There's additional houses being, at least there's a foundation anyway that's been poured. You haven't had any response from any of those folks in that neighborhood?
no, we have not. And Mark pointed out yesterday that these houses here are actually served by a service road, so there's only one entrance onto Golf Course Road.
Right. Okay. Okay. I would move for approval.
Second.
Moved by DeSanto, second by LaCroy. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Usually when you speak, you can't make a motion, but I'm letting that
sorry,
go
you're
today.
right.
So I don't think for me, it's not that big a deal, just so we move it forward. So, and then we can always have the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb, for pointing that out. You're right.
You're good.
That is correct.
Resolution for county secondary highways, Jim Street.
So this is as directed by the board from the previous meeting on July 16th, I think it was. We've prepared a resolution to add Jim Street, the 0.07 miles to the county highway system. We are planning to gravel that and get a maintainer on it, and then hopefully get it it may work into it being chip sealed on our county chip seal program this year, so. We're still working out the logistics on that. We haven't done anything on it yet, just with all the nice water we've had this year. I don't know if anybody caught, but we've had the wettest consecutive 2 years since 1962. So
Wow.
2018 and 19 we're 51 inches and we're only in August. So we're going to shatter that record, I'm sure.
Do we have a motion or discussion?
I would move for approval.
Moved by DeSanto.
Second.
Second by Ross Connect. Discussion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
question. Uh, The action that we took at the last meeting,
Correct.
that does not cause any additional expense, does it? Since we had basically delayed, what we talked about is putting gravel on and then later on looking at putting the finish.
Correct. So after, as I was explaining to Deb here prior to the meeting, once we get it added to the county highway system, generally the surfacing is left up to the highway department. You know, whether we chip seal it or gravel it and maintain it. Once we get it added to the highway system, we can maintain it and as a safe and drivable surface. So,
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LeCoeur.
First of all, I want to thank Mark for bringing this up because, Mr. DeSanto, because I mean, this has been in limbo for quite a while between the city and the county, and I think we did the right thing. I know the city wasn't going to take it over, and I think, you know, we did the right thing by taking it over. One of the things I would suggest, I talked to a council member the other day about this street. I firmly believe this is one of those things where we could help each other out on this, and he said new requests are coming forward for the CIP funding in around December, January, and he suggested bringing something forward just for thoughts. That may be something we could go to the CIP committee to, whether it's, I'd be willing to do it with you, Mark, to ask for some funding. I mean, they did kind of create some problems with the development next to us, so I mean, but that is an option that we could do.
Okay, good.
I agree, and then maybe in the future, look at different areas that they can take over and we can take, like we do with snow removal. And I think your mayor's more than agreeable of working with the county on some of those issues. So we've visited with him many times of how we can, what their goals are and what ours are. So maybe we could start having some conversations on that, where they can take over some of these streets and don't have to annex and do all that kind of thing for some of it, but.
Just to follow up for their contact information, I think Richie Nordstrom's still chairman of the CIP committee, and that's who I talked to.
what was the name again?
Richie Nordstrom,
I'll get the information from you after.
yeah.
Thank you. So we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Items from Human Resources. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. John Morrow, Pennington County HR. So what I have before you today is actually the second review of the out-of-class pay and field training officer pay process. We've had these things in place, so we're not introducing anything new with regard to that. What is new, however, is that in the second paragraph of this memo, it says any department using OCP or FTO pay must have a written policy detailing how it's administered, a copy of which will be maintained by the payroll department as well as by the HR department in the county. That section's new. And then at the bottom here, we're suggesting again that with your approval, any additional implemented OCPs or FTO rates must be approved, and any or changes to those current rates must be approved by the board. So today I'm seeking approval, if you will, of this pay process as the second viewing or the second reading of the process.
Okay, Commissioners, any question, discussion? I have a little bit. Is this a government OCP, FTO policies, or is this what happens in anything that they have for field training officers in any job description? Meaning, you see where I'm going?
Yes, I do. So this is actually just internal with regard to a process for the county. Some departments have out-of-class pay. For example, in the past, we've talked about the tower climbers from 911. We have field training officers as well that help train the new employees in different areas of the county. This is just to document what those processes are and then have it in a centralized location so they can be reviewed and administered consistently across the different departments.
So basically, if you're under that rating, then you get extra money.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're doing that in government, or again, the private sector, do they do that too? Or they just give them a certain step, or,
No,
why do?
in private sector, we did the same type of thing, where we'd have premium pay, and this is a version of premium pay. It's just that we call it out-of-class pay, so the titling is different.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so a follow-up, sir, just for a sec. So, basically, I mean, how do you tell if it's additional training, responsibility, risk of knowledge? I mean, do you have that described? Or is, I could say, well, John, you're taking a lot of risk. This is where you're going. This is, you should have some of this as well. So is it another addition that we could add to somebody's pay because we want to pay them more? You see where I'm going?
Yes,
Instead
ma'am.
of that, it actually is a,
So the people that do receive this are documented as being field training officers. So for example, within the sheriff's department, we have field training officers like at JSC or in the jail. That is their primary role, is to train new people as they're coming in. So it's additional responsibility over and above. They have to be very fluent and capable in their positions to be able to share that knowledge specifically with new people to help them develop.
but aren't they called like supervisors, or don't they already have grades for that already?
They-
Where they're getting paid more for that job?
Sure, we do have supervisors and managers and all of those things in place. This is specifically around training for those different skills that are necessary. So I don't believe anyone is here from the sheriff's department to speak to that. I'm more familiar with the out-of-class pay, and as I mentioned, we have the out-of-class hours, the hourly rate, if you will, for our tower climbers. We do the same thing. It's just so many cents per hour that the field training officers are granted while they're doing the training for those new people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Basically, it kind of goes in line with, on the private sector with maybe like hazardous duty pay. Or in the case of a trucking company, for example, you may be a dock worker at some point in time. If the hostler that hooks trailers together calls in sick and they need to move a dock worker off to do the hostling's a higher rate of pay because it's more dangerous than working on the dock. And so then they give that person that higher rate of pay that day that he happened to fill in for the hostler.
That's true, because they do that in the oil fields and stuff too, where I've seen my husband working, and that's, you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't relate
So
to it that way.
It's basically compensating them for going outside of their normal duty requirements.
Which is more
Yes, sir. Thank you.
responsibility. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Is there a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroy,
Second. Oh, I
second
spoke.
by DeSanto.
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You
Thank you,
can't,
Commissioners.
when you do that, Commissioner.
Deb's
Stan,
got
you
me
can't-
paranoid
you can't- You can't make you can't speak and then go, okay, I approve. That kind of thing, but you can do the second. All right. Commissioner Hawley, Ms. Hawley.
Commissioners, what you have in front of you is the finalized packet for the 2019 County Achievement Award for the CARE Campus. I just want to give a big thanks to Barry, Helene, Liz, Sheriff Tome, and Joan for helping me put this all together and into the final presentation that you have in front of you. So today, what we're looking for is a motion to approve the resolution for the nomination.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Moved by
Second.
LaCroy, second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I had
Motion
discussion.
carries. I was gonna give
Yeah,
you,
okay.
discussion afterwards anyway, and also kudos because this was brought forward by, Commissioner LaCroy. So Commissioner LaCroy, I apologize.
Oh, no, I just think this is outstanding because, and thanks for all your guys' hard work, because last year Holly and I discussed, we kind of wanted present this to NACO for their annual Vegas one, but we didn't have enough information gathered with the CARE campus at that point in time. So be aware, January's coming, and I think next year will probably be, I think it's in May or somewhere around there, February, May, they're gonna ask for,
Correct.
submittals for NACO.
Submissions for NACO for their national award.
Exactly, and I think this is gonna be an outstanding thing that we could share with them. And just a few notes from our board meeting, or Gary's board meeting yesterday, I'll go over that when it's time to give reports, but, the work that we're doing here is well known throughout the state, and there was some discussion on the campus that we have and so forth. So I just want to say this is a star that's sticking out there in people's mind and they're looking at. So
We did National League of Cities, and we had one of our representatives there from Crisis Care. So people are really interested in this. We talked with Sioux Falls in different areas. So I think it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to mimic to try to save their county some money and that one-stop shop kind of attitude. So good job, Commissioner LaCroix and Miss Holly, for finishing and following through with all the information to move that forward. Now, board, we'll need a break till 10:30. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
second,
Moved by DeSanto, second by LaCroix. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Did we get,
Move to
Motion
come
to-
into the Board of Adjustment.
There you go.
second,
Moved by DeSanto, second by Drews to come out of, or to go into Board of Adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item A, please. Miss Cassie today.
Yes, you get me today. Morning, Cassie Bolstead, Assistant Planning Director. You have several variances in front of you today for the Board of Adjustment. Item A is variance 1904. This is a request to reduce the front yard setback from 5 feet to 0 feet for an on-premise sign in a highway service district. The applicant is Keystone Adventures, Andrew Bussey as the agent. This has been in front of you before. I did speak with Andrew on July 31st. He would like for this to be continued for one more month. He's still working with the Department of Transportation to try to reach an agreement on this sign with them that might not even warrant needing this variance. So staff is recommending to continue variance 1904 to the September 20th, 2019 board meeting.
So moved.
that motion?
Moved by Drews and second by
DeSanto.
DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item B is variance 1907. This is a request to reduce the side yard setback from 25 feet to 15 feet in order to build a structure in a limited agriculture district. The applicants are James and Cynthia Perry. The purpose of this variance is to allow for the construction of an accessory structure which would contain a garage, a shop, and sleeping quarters. For ease of the public and for ease of you guys, there are these 4 criteria that the Board of Adjustment needs to consider for a variance request. Rather than read them, I'll just read staff's response to all 4 of them, if that's okay with everyone. For the first criteria, staff has verified through a site visit that topography, tree growth, and the location of the existing drain field contribute to a limited buildable space on the property. For criteria 2, this variance would not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from property zoned as limited agriculture district. And if the variance is approved, a building permit will be required for the proposed structure. Criteria 3, strict application of the zoning ordinance would require them to meet or exceed a 25-foot setback on all the property lines. And criteria 4, granting this variance would allow for a reduced setback in a limited agriculture district, which is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. But as of staff's writing of the report, staff has not received any letters or phone calls of complaint or concern relative to this variance. So basically, as this property exists today, it's a little over 5 acres. There is no special flood hazard area on it. It currently contains a single-family residence with decks. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process. I do want to point out one thing from the county on-site wastewater specialist. He stated that according to the permit from 2004, the applicant's septic system is sized for 4 bedrooms. According to equalization records, the house has 4 bedrooms in it. The applicant is proposing to construct a building with sleeping quarters, which would add an additional bedroom at a minimum. The applicant has applied for a septic permit to add a 500-gallon tank to an existing 1,000-gallon tank, which would bring the tank's capacity into compliance without a garbage disposal. However, he did point out that the drain field would still be undersized and would need to be expanded, which is something that we can address through the building permit process. So as of this staff report, there does appear to be limited available buildable space on the subject property. The applicant does have additional options that could make this variance unnecessary. Those options would include building a smaller structure so there's no encroachment into the setback, moving the proposed structure closer to the existing residence. The applicant's site plan shows a 29-foot gap between the proposed structure and the existing residence. Attach the proposed structure to the existing residence, or clear trees and excavate additional ground to relocate the proposed accessory structure to the south of the existing residence. So if the Board of Adjustment chooses to approve variance 1907, staff recommends one condition be included.
I would move for approval.
Moved by DeSanto. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Roskinek. Discussion? I have some discussion. So if it's limited buildable space, are they gonna have enough room to put in more septic area? Meaning, he's raising his hand. Applicant, if you'd like to come forward.
Is that possible? Yes, ma'am. You have, I need to correct 2 things.
Your name first, sir.
I'm sorry, James Perry.
Are you the applicant?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Speaking with PJ, we do not have currently 4 bedrooms, and our field is sized for a 4-bedroom. I have paperwork to state as such.
Okay, how many bedrooms do you have, sir?
3, ma'am.
Okay, and then, the primary access, Highway 16 portion of the Hardesty Road are located on National Forest System lands. Do you have to have a special permit where you're at for the road or anything else?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am.
Cassie, did you notice that on the report from the United States Forest Service?
Yes, I did notice that they did state that there is no special land use authorization granted from the United States Forest Service right now. I believe Rodney Brown is working through that process.
Is that the one with Roskinek was working with?
Right.
That'd be all of the neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Not just.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, Mr. Perry.
Yes, ma'am.
You're good. Okay, so Cassie, he says he has 3 bedrooms and 1, he would have a guest house, so he wouldn't have to do the septic when, building permit time? Maybe it's Miss,
As per PJ.
hold on, Mr. Perry.
Thought you were asking me, sorry.
You're okay. Brittany, maybe you could verify?
So I apologize, repeat the question.
He says he has 3 bedrooms and then 1 guest, and that his septic, at that point, the capacity of his septic would be able to handle it without doing the 500-gallon tank.
No. 4 bedrooms does require a
matter what.
1,500-gallon tank.
Okay. And you understand that, Mr. Perry, that you still have to do the tank?
Yes, ma'am. The tank was
Okay.
approved but the field is good.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
sir. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy?
I think you answered my questions, because that was my concern. So you're going with the bigger tank on the septic, and,
Yeah, PJ
Okay.
said 500
Yeah.
would do it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, sir.
so you're good there. That was my other question. And I think, follow up to what you were saying, without digging through this, they probably sent you a letter to apply to be a part of that, for the use of that road. There's a list of people that who are on that list, and I think what happened, how long have you lived there?
It'll be 6 years.
Yeah, so maybe when you bought the place, you didn't realize that you had to get approved through the Black Hills National
Neighbor's
Forest.
been there over 20 years, and he said he's never heard anything of this.
Well, from the
don't
notes that I've got, they've sent you a letter to get you started. If you,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Any other questions?
no, that was it.
Anybody else? Commission, board, any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie. Item C,
Item C is variance 1908. This is a request to reduce the side yard setback from 8 feet to 0 feet to bring an existing shed into compliance in the suburban residential district. The applicants are Richard and Lisa Heinzman. This was before you at the last board meeting. Do you want me to go through all of it again, Madam Chair, or would you just like, I don't have any updates on this one. It was just continued so that
Ms.
some of you
Cassie.
wanted to go see it.
I was the only one missing, but I do have a couple of questions. On the 8-foot minor drainage and utility easement, is that through their own property or is in the middle, so they split half and half of that easement? What happens?
That 8-foot minor drainage and utility easement was on the interior side of their lot line.
Okay.
They vacated that through the city on that, that side yard alone.
Okay.
Right there is where they vacated that 8-foot minor drainage and utility
So it was
easement.
on their property,
Yep.
you said?
Yep.
And this variance only applies for existing, all structures must meet the minimal setback, do they?
Yes, all the other ones do. This would only apply for this small little portion of the shed over here that he built.
Okay, and then I also read one of the letters from Donna and Alexis Zuniga.
Mhm.
And it says about the properties, our fence that we paid and installed the shed, he drilled through and cut all the supports causing damage to our property and gates. Was there discussion on that last time about moving pins and being on somebody else's property, building, this shed?
I believe there was just a little bit of discussion on that. I did talk to Mr. Heinzman after the last board meeting to let him know that it got continued. He stated to me that that shed is not attached to that fence, so we kind of have conflicting information there. Mr. Heinzman is stating it's not attached, and the neighbor is stating that it is attached, or at least drilled in some part into the support beams.
Okay, so it's not drilled into the support beams? So you don't know?
Not according to Mr. Heinzman, it's not attached to the fence.
Is Mr. Heinzman's or Mr. Zuniga here to speak?
I don't believe so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinicht.
a few days after the last meeting, I went out there and I visited with the owner to the right. And I didn't really get on either property because nobody was home at the time, but not based on what I saw and what I've read, I cannot support this zero setback.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that.
I'll second.
I
Okay.
can't because I had a discussion.
Okay,
I will-
Santo, you'll
I
first
would
it,
move to deny the variance.
and then Roskinicht, you're seconding that, sir? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So
Thank
can you tell me what happens from here that we have denied this and he has a shed built?
He will have to take it down, that
Okay.
portion of that shed that he built,
Okay.
which I will let him know.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinicht.
maybe as a compromise, if he takes that down, but he still wants something covered, could he put up like a pole with canvas or a tarp so that he'd still be able to use a concrete pad if it's temporary, like a tent?
If it was like a tent type structure, that might be something that we could look at. If it was like a carport type structure, that still qualifies as a structure under our zoning ordinance, so it still needs to meet setback requirements. He would have the option to take it down and move it somewhere else on his property, into his backyard or something
Yeah,
along those lines.
Just trying to see if there's a compromise for the
Yeah,
gentleman.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item D, please. What's your name?
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Item D is a request to reduce the rear yard setback from 25 feet to 0 feet in order to place a modular home on the subject property. Just for your information and for the public, there are 4 criteria required when considering a variance. As the property sits today, it consists of 2.18 acres. It is owned general agriculture district. It is a legal non-conforming as the lot was platted prior to February 20th, 1994. The lot does contain a foundation that contains a parcel of a former residence that was lost in a fire a few years back. There is a existing on-site wastewater treatment system. In the report, it did say that there was no current operating permit in place. I did speak with the applicants yesterday, and they did have the system pumped in order to use it for their new structure. There is an existing 24 by 20 detached garage, and there is special flood hazard area on the subject property. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process. One item to note, the Forest Service did come back saying that it appeared that there are some encroachments that may be on Forest Service lands. I did speak with the applicant, and the Forest Service has been out there and did do a boundary survey, and to their knowledge, everything appears to be on their property. As this property is today, the existing structure was built in the 50s. There was a setback variance approved by the Board of Commissioners in 2001 to allow this structure with a 0-foot setback. This is what the property owners are requesting today. That proposed is the proposed modular home. It appears it'll be like less than 5 feet from the property line. Staff doesn't have any other concerns with the subject property, and we are recommending, we make no recommendation, however, if the variance is approved with 2 conditions.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
this is located in a very rural area. McVeigh Road used to be the main road to Deerfield, and I think that variance would have nominal impact, just my opinion.
I would move for approval.
I'll second.
Moved by DeSantos, second by Roskinek. I have just one question. If you look at the triangle and you look at the 100-year flood, their drain field's in the 100-year flood, isn't it? Area?
It is, but it's existing, so it would be grandfathered. Currently, it's sized for a 3-bedroom. If they do any work, they would have to, they did submit a floodplain development permit yesterday also for the new structure, and any other work that would have to be done in the floodplain, their drain field would have to get a floodplain permit also. I don't know if they're going to be doing any upgrades to the system at this time. If they did, they'd have to go through the floodplain development permit process, and staff would highly recommend that it be located outside of the floodplain.
Okay, thank you. That's just the concern I had. Thank you.
Just one quick, Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
The new modular that's going on, is that going to be on the foundation?
It is going to be on piers.
Piers. Okay, so it's still going to be elevated minimum 2 feet.
Correct. They did submit a floodplain development permit yesterday.
Just so that, for me, it was just make sure they have the floodplain permit, so they have to follow the rules and regs, especially if you're right by a creek with a drain field and a modular, so just for safety reasons. Do you have a motion and a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item E, please.
Cassie Bolstead again. Item E is the last variance for you guys today. This is variance 1910. This is a request to reduce the minimum required lot size from 40 acres to 0.625 acres, 5 acres, 5 acres again, 7.5 acres, another 7.5 acres, and 8.75 acres in a general agriculture district. The applicants are Terry and Marcia Graber. The purpose of this variance is to allow the landowners to subdivide the subject property as it exists today into 6 separate pieces so that they can be sold. Per the applicant, the described properties are either being kept by the landowners, being purchased by abutting landowners, or being sold to new landowners. They have also indicated that the physical hardship that warrants a variance is lay of the land isolates the various parcels. So the way that this property exists today, it is this large property right here. What they are trying to do with this property, they're proposing to subdivide it into what you see up there. Property A would be 8.75 acres. Property B and property C would be 5 acres. Property D and property E would be 7.5 acres, and F would be 0.625 acre. Currently, there is a telecommunications facility on this property, and all the other remaining ones are vacant. The telecommunication facility is on what's labeled up there as property F. This was routed through the interdepartmental review process. There was one item that I did want to point out. The County Highway Department states that the lot size variance should be denied based on the submitted materials because lots B, C, D, and E would be isolated tracts. By selling the lots as eloquent parts, which is permissible under South Dakota law, they circumvent the county's platting requirements requiring access easements. Unless legally enforceable access easements are created, the lot size variance should be denied. Staff does want to point out that the applicants have later submitted information describing their proposed access easements, which would be right there. So they are proposing some access easements. They are not planning on actually platting these properties. They're just planning on doing eloquent descriptions. So doing like quarter sections, which does not come through our office. That just gets filed with the Register of Deeds. So the platting part of this would not be seen by our office. So the access easement would be something that would be filed along with those eloquent descriptions. Let's see here. I don't think there was any other comments of concern that came back. So for the criteria for the variance request, criteria number 1, the subject property is forested and varies in elevation by approximately 120 feet. The buildable space on the parent parcel appears to be limited. Criteria 2, this setback does not grant a use which is otherwise excluded from property zoned as general agriculture. Criteria 3, strict application of the zoning ordinance would require the properties to meet the minimum lot size requirement of 40 acres in a general agriculture district or be rezoned to an appropriate zoning district. At this time, the subject property is legal non-conforming for lot size. Currently, the whole parent parcel is 30.48 acres, which doesn't meet the 40-acre requirement right now. And the final criteria granting this lot size variance does not appear to be contrary to the public interest, as the planning department has received no calls or letters of complaint. However, if it was approved, it would allow for 6 new properties in a general agriculture district ranging in size from 0.625 acre to 8.75 acres, which is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. It is pointed out in the staff report that access easements, where applicable, should be recorded with the Register of Deeds to prevent the creation of any isolated tracts. The existing property is under that 40-acre minimum lot size requirement, so any subdivision of the property, whether by platting or being described eloquently, would require rezoning and/or lot size variance like this. The applicant could create larger lots and rezone to a limited agriculture district, which requires a 10-acre minimum lot size. And the applicant could also request to rezone the described lots, which would require rezoning to low-density residential and suburban residential, which could create spot zoning, which is also an issue. So if the Board of Adjustment chooses to approve variance 1910, staff does not recommend any conditions be included, as any concerns or requirements would be addressed through a building permit process.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Questions? Commissioner Roskinek?
can you go back to that easement, Cassie?
Yep.
Okay, so on paper, that looks like a pretty straightforward, but what is the actual topography there? Is that physically possible to put a
Let me see if I
future
put-
road in that proposed easement?
I didn't put the topography one in there. Let me pull up the topography one.
Or if you'd like to speak, you can get a speaker request form from the back and then put your name on it. And then I'll have Brittany take that from him if you would, because we have one other speaker from the public before.
So there's what the topography looks like in that area. I believe that easement would come in like right through here.
And where would it come in off?
Let's go back to. So where they're proposing their easement to come would be off of the existing road up here and down in like this. So.
I've seen other
Oops.
property where they, there's an easement, but it's not physically possible, so no sense in even having an easement. But
Yeah.
if we could get verified that that could physically be possible by an engineer, I'd be more apt to approve this.
Okay.
And I haven't been further, I've been up to this cell tower right here, and this is very steep climb up to this cell tower. I have not gone past the cell tower's approach right here to see what the topography is up this way. But this climb right here is pretty significant.
And the cell tower, that's on that small little 0.6 acre lot?
Right. Oh, sorry. I didn't write this staff report. The cell tower, the cell tower would be on A, not F.
Oh,
F
okay.
is getting absorbed into another property over here, from what I understand.
Okay.
But yeah, the cell tower would sit on A over here.
Okay. So, Mr. Sumner, would you like the gentleman to speak first, or would you like to speak first on this issue? Is this yours? I'm sorry. Did I miss you on?
Oh, I thought I was on item 18K.
Okay, I apologize. I couldn't read your K. Sorry, sir. I thought it said C or E. Okay. So Cassie, I'm gonna have Terry, what's your name, sir? I'll let you, Mr. Graber, you first, sir. Sorry, Mr. Sumner. I couldn't read your K or C or E.
So the
Your
cell
name's-
tower is, I'm Terry Graber. I'm
Thank you, sir.
the applicant. The cell tower is on A. I was filling out my form, so I didn't quite hear all the questions about access. So the 40-acre square to the east of all this is land that we own. Our driveway crosses it. It intersects roughly at that northeast corner, which would provide the access for A. That's our driveway off of Cosmos Road. So then, to get access to this space where B, C, D, and E are, we have to cross a little rise, but we would plan on providing a driveway across there that would come into the meadow at the intersection of B and E on the east, and essentially follow that line, which is essentially the north boundary of the meadow. So it would be possible to put a road there that would come to an intersection between B, C, D, and E.
Okay, Commissioner Roskinek, do you have a question?
Okay, so if the plants get approved and somebody wants to buy, for an example, Lot D, then before they can get a building permit, are they gonna have to show proof of legal and physical access to Lot D?
Well, I would assume that, yes. I honestly don't know the rules myself, but our intention was that coincident with approval, then we would put the road in. Absent approval, we're not inspired to put the road in. But coincident with that approval, we'd build the road across there, put it to that intersection. All 4 lots would have access. Now, the road would have to touch each lot, so each lot has to give an easement to the other for the access across that bit of its property, but that doesn't seem problematic to me. That would be written into any sales contracts we'd put together, as well as our granting of the easement to get to that meadow from across our property. But there is road access at the northeast corner of that property, which is what I understood you were asking about. And that road access is our currently used driveway, and it's our access off of Cosmos Road, for which we do have a conditional use permit from the Forest Service.
So there's a report on this that says by selling the lots as aliquot parts, which is permissible under state law, they circumvent the county's plating requirements requiring access easements. Unless legally enforced access easements are created, the lot size variance should be denied. I always thought you had to have the accesses done beforehand and understand building the road. But if you're going to do an easement, no matter what, if you sell that area, you're still going to need that road in there, no matter what lots you sell.
I guess my understanding would be that the easement is a legal contract between 2 parties. Currently, there's not yet a second party. I have 2 proposed second parties sitting in the back. They would become second parties to that easement agreement as soon as we can write up contract papers.
So can someone explain, maybe Brittany or Cassie, what that means by them not doing it beforehand, because I understand what he's saying, that if you can't sell those lots the way they are, then there wouldn't be any reason for easement.
Right, right. So basically what it comes down to is that he is correct. Without selling the lots and creating those lots by eloquent description, the need for an easement wouldn't exist. Because if he didn't eloquently describe and actually create these lots, then it would stay as its larger parcel, which has access off of Cosmos Road, which would negate the need for any sort of easement. So until he actually describes these properties, files that with the Register of Deed, and actually creates one of these lots, that's when the need for an access easement would come into play.
Thank you. And another question, do you live in this area, Terry?
I live another quarter mile to the east.
Okay, is there a lot of bedrock in there? Isn't this like an area sensitive for septics because of bedrock?
So the way we've chosen to lay out the parcels, as it happens, the lines correspond roughly to the wooded edge of a meadow. D and E have portions of meadow well within them. There have been perk tests done on Lot A and the northwest corner. There's a septic on the northwest corner, that unmarked portion of the square.
Okay.
There's been a perk test done in Lot A that showed adequate perk, and the fringes of the meadow, let's say amongst the trees, have plenty of open area with soil. It lays out that way. B and C are essentially forested, but they have treed or open areas within the forest that would have soil for septic. And D and E has essentially all meadow, and D has a section of meadow on it. So the way it laid out, just by making this square, it included suitable land on each lot for septic.
Okay. I just thought this was a sensitive area by the Cosmos for septic, so because of the bedrock and the way the lay of the land was.
I guess I wouldn't have any comment to that, other than the fact that we've got two septics on our property further east, and there has been a perk test on A, and there is an existing septic on the northwest corner of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Grable. Any other questions for Mr. Grable?
One for Cassie. Cassie, so basically what he wants to do is subdivide this parcel into smaller tracts, which seems logical. If it was a different zoning, would we be going through the variance that was low density or suburban residential?
The only one that he would have to go through if it was if the zoning was already low density, would be that little tiny
Right.
F1. But like PJ pointed out in his staff report, there is no low density or suburban residential really in this area. But no, if he were one of those smaller zoning districts, he wouldn't need to be doing this.
Mr. Grable, why did you put such a small lot in F?
The owners of the northwest corner wish to add F to the rest of the land that they already own.
So it's just adding, it's not making a smaller lot. Okay, that makes sense.
They will also be the likely purchasers of C, which is attached to their property.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve the variance.
Okay, there's been a motion by Ross Connect. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by LaCroy. Any other discussion? Nope, that was okay. I read that right. So, sorry. My biggest concern is to make sure that access easement is done. Cassie, do they have to do that before the building permit show that they have done that easement for the road?
Yes, before a building permit would be able to be applied for, they would have to show legal access to
Okay,
the property.
thank you. That's all I need to know. Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Grable.
Move to come out of Board of Adjustments.
There's been a motion to come out of board adjustment by Commissioner LaCroy and a second by Commissioner DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Ms. Cassie, consent agenda, please.
Yes, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item F, second reading of rezone 1908 and comprehensive plan amendment 1908 for Brad and Colleen Kurtz, and approval is recommended. And item G, layout plat LPL 1915 for Terry and Marcia Graber, and it is recommended to end.
I would move for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve number F and G in the consent agenda by DeSanto. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ross Connect. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Next is item I on the regular agenda.
I think we're on H, aren't we?
I'm in the wrong, yep, H, sorry. I missed one.
Item H is rezone 1910 and comprehensive plan amendment 1910. This is a request to rezone 32.58 acres from general agriculture district to limited agriculture district, and to amend the Pennington County comprehensive plan to change the future land use from general agriculture district to limited agriculture district. The applicant is Dwayne Scott. There is another landowner involved in this, which is Travis and Melissa Woodward. Currently, this property exists as two properties. Property A is to the north, property B is to the south. The purpose of this is for selling the lots for residential use. It's my understanding that property B has already been sold. Property A is 20.98 acres, property B is 11.6 acres. There are section lines that run north, south, and east, west on these properties. They're currently both vacant. This was routed through the interdepartment review process. One item of note came from the environmental planning supervisor, who stated that it appears that access to the subject property is from unimproved section line right-of-ways. Road construction in the section line right-of-way applications will need to be approved by the Board of Commissioners for access to these residential lots if the section line is used, which comes through the building permit process. Surrounding current zoning within 2 miles of the subject property is general agriculture district, limited agriculture district, and there is a tiny bit of suburban residential out further than what this picture shows. And surrounding future land use within 2 miles is the same, general agriculture, limited agriculture, and a little bit of suburban residential. The applicant's request does appear to be in harmony with the surrounding current zoning and the current uses in the surrounding area, so staff is recommending approval of rezone 1910 and comprehensive plan amendment 1910.
Is there a motion or discussion? I'll move to approve.
Second.
Second by first by Hadcock, second by LaCroy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item I.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Tennyson, County Planner. Agenda item I is rezone 1909 and comprehensive plan amendment 1909. Applicant is Deborah Legge. Agent is Fisk Land Surveying, and Janelle is here to answer any questions that I might not be able to. The applicant has submitted a request to rezone 3.18 acres from low-density residential district to suburban residential district, and is also requesting to amend the Pennington County comprehensive plan in the same way.
Okay.
The purpose of the request is to conform with lot size requirements of the zoning ordinance before final plating. In December 2018, this board approved layout plan LPL 1940 to subdivide the property into 2 lots, each approximately 2.5 acres. As it sits today, the property consists of 5.18 acres. It is currently dual zoned. The portion there you see in yellow is the portion we're talking about today. 3.18 acres zoned low density residential. The remaining 2 acres are zoned suburban residential district. It's currently, the entire property is vacant of any structures. There's no special flood hazard on the property, and access is taken off of Greyhound Gulch Road. In my analysis, I used a 1-mile corridor to evaluate for similar zoning in the area. What I found was the majority of a general agriculture district. However, the Keystone City limits, limited agriculture, low-density residential, suburban residential, and planned unit development districts are also included in that 1-mile buffer. I used the same analysis for future land use zoning within 1 mile. I found a lot of public land, planned unit development sensitive, also the Keystone City Limits, planned unit development, low-density residential district, as well as suburban residential districts. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review and no significant comments were received. Just to kind of recap, in December 2018, the board did approve LPL 1840 to subdivide the property into 2 lots. One of those conditions was that the approval, or before final plating, that the applicant either obtain a lot size variance or rezone the property to meet the zoning ordinance. She chose to rezone.
Move for approval.
Moved by DeSanto,
Second.
second by Ross Connect. Any other information we missed, Jason?
No, ma'am.
If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item J. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Is that you, Miss Brittany?
It's not, but I can present it. Item J is for this same request. It is a subdivision regulations variance to waive plating requirements in order to create lots 1 and 2 of Greyhound Gulch subdivision. Again, these are the 2 lots. The applicants are requesting subdivision regulations to waive any road construction plans and road improvements and percolation test and soil profile information. My understanding of these 2 lots is from the Planning Commission, meaning that these 2 lots, the reason that they're planting these is to give equal lot sizes for family members. So the reason that they're basically creating these lots is for that. Currently, they do consist of 2 lots now. They're just basically moving the lot lines to do this. And in order to do that, they had to go through the layout plat process and the minor plat process. So they're doing the subdivision regulations to not improve the road and to submit percolation test and soil profile information because they're not changing the way that the lots are being used, just how they're configured. So.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
So just to clarify, we are not waiving the submittal of a percolation test.
Yes.
We are waiving.
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell us why, maybe, for more information, why? they
The
came up with that?
applicant's agent is here. My understanding is that they don't intend to build on this anytime soon, and at the time of building permit submittal, they can do the percolation test and soil profile information.
So if they do apply for a building permit, then it's going to be required?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
Thank you for giving us the details. We had great discussion at this planning commission. We had quite a few residents come forward, worrying about the rezoning and so forth. And the main purpose of this is separating equally the properties, and one was owned already. But I believe we still have, you were at the planning commission, where you're well understood of what's going on and okay now after all those conversations. I forgot your name, but yeah.
Ma'am, if you'd like to speak, you can come up here if you would. Sorry, Commissioner
I didn't mean
LaCroix
to bring
started
you in-
speaking to you, but that's okay.
Bring in the spotlight,
Just
but
wanted to know
I
some of your
understand it
concerns.
better, and it's a good learning experience to come to these.
Your name, ma'am?
My name is Stella Watson, as I stated back there. I just think that, even though at this present time they're not going to plan on building, it's their prerogative if they want to anyway, but it's in a very rural country area, and it's not, in my opinion, suited to suburban, to be suburbanized. And so that's isn't there another way to do that? Because in the future, then it would be applicable because it's already been zoned to do so. And in my opinion, it's not appropriate countryside and area. Although, like he stated, some of the areas around it do have some of those zoning.
But
I'm general agriculture.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Stella, I mean, from what I gathered from the planning commission, it was kind of enlightening for the whole group that I think you guys misunderstood what was all happening, but you gathered enough information, you're comfortable with what's happening now. Before you could.
Everything except what I just stated.
Okay. Okay. Thanks,
good.
Della.
Any other questions, Commissioner LaCroy? Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ross Connect,
Second.
second by LaCroy. Brittany, did you have anything to share?
No, I do not.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item K, and we do have two speaker requests. Would you like to, we'll have you go first, Ms.
Okay.
Brittany.
Item K is layout plat LPL 1921 to combine lots to create Lot D1 and D2 of Lot 17 of the Fort Meade Placer. As the property stands today, there are 3 existing lots. One lot consists of 7.42 acres and is zone low-density residential district. The access is off of Thunderhead Falls Road. There is more than 40 lots on the dead-end road on Thunderhead Falls Road. This lot does contain the retail store from the original Thunderhead Falls and a commercial utility building. There is special flood hazard area on this property. The second lot is zone low-density residential district. It consists of 0.36 acres. There is a restriction on the plat that only a holding tank can be used on this lot as a means of wastewater treatment. This access is off of Thunderhead Falls Road, and it is vacant of any structures. The third lot on this is a small lot, 0.03 acres, and it is vacant of any structures. They are proposing to reconfigure the lot lines on this. The lot D1 would consist of 4.534 acres. It would be zone low density residential district. It would have a shared access with lot D2. They are proposing a single family residence on that lot, and there is special flood hazard area on this property, including floodway. Lot D2 consists of 4.537 acres. It would be zone low density residential district. They would have the shared access again. They are proposing a single family residence on this. There is special flood hazard area, including floodway on this, and this is the subject property that consists of what is known as the Thunderhead Falls. There is an old retail store and a commercial utility building on that. Just a couple items of note along this. There is several creek crossings on Thunderhead Falls Road. There are 7 actually before the subject property. There is a Presbyterian camp and the Salvation Army camp along this road also. This proposed plat, however, will not increase density for buildable lots. There are 2 lots that we could essentially submit or approve building permits for. One would just have that plat restriction of having a holding tank only. The purposes of this is so that they could have more of a larger building envelope on the 2 lots instead of having that smaller lot that's down in that southwest corner. So staff is recommending approval of this layout plat with 8 conditions. So I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Brittany.
Sure.
We'll have the applicant or Mr. Sumner, if you'd like to come up and speak. And then we have another speaker request after that, and then we'll have the board discussion. Thank you, Mr. Sumner.
Thank you. My name's Scott Sumner. I represent the owner, which is Jeff Shear. Mr. Shear's here. The members of the commission who are on the members of the board are on the planning commission would remember that this was previously presented as a proposal for 3 lots, and we have taken input, if you will, and decided to approach this as 2 lots. And it is most a rather complex boundary revision between the 2 existing buildable lots out there, the smaller triangle to the lower left and the larger parcel. It actually is the proposed 2 building sites are proposed to be owned by 2 friends, and they're Mr. Shear and a couple named Shearmeister. And they're actually proposing to impose the mutually agreed easement, if you will, on the long isthmus that connects the 2 portions of this property. The odd-shaped parcel to the north has Rapid Creek running through it, and it is not really buildable because of the presence of the creek. the skinny aisle that connects the two portions of the larger lot is the location where the underground waterfall is for Thunderhead Falls. So there's an actual underground waterway in that passageway. And then at the where it comes out at the bottom, where the falls comes to daylight, is where the commercial structure is that was mentioned, the old retail site. Their plan is to mutually agree to that part of the lot never be developed, so that can be the existing falls, the underground falls, can be mutually appreciated by the owners of the two lots, and so that's their plan. And the you know, by dividing the lots the way it is proposed, you improve the septic for the smaller of the two lots. So now, and the acreages are a little confusing. You know, it's shown to be 7.4 acres, the larger lot, lot D of lot 17, but it's altogether it's actually closer to 9.5, 9.4 something. And so in the end, we're going to have the proposal ends up with two lots that are roughly 4.7 acres apiece, as close as possible to equal sized. There were two buildable lots before this proposed change. There will be two buildable lots after this proposed change. There will be no increase in density for Thunderhead Falls Road. This amounts to a boundary revision or a lot line revision between two existing buildable lots. I mentioned the mutual easements. There's no change in zoning requested, no variance of any sort requested. We're just trying to move the boundary between these lots. The one important result is that the building site for the second home will be safer relative to flood zone than it would have been had it been forced to be built on the smaller triangle. And I guess the staff has recommended approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Madam Chair,
Roskinek?
on the lower parcel to the east, does that, you know where the little general store used to be, and you'd walk up to the water or underground falls?
Yes.
Does that road continue on from there?
It's a little bit of a mystery. You know, if you look at the original plats, so there's a complex platting history here, you know, layers and layers and layers of plats on top of plats. And when Thunderhead Falls Road was platted, it continues to the east a little bit. But when you go out there physically and look at it, there's a gate at the Presbyterian camp.
Yeah.
And so it's been treated as though it stops at the gate to the Presbyterian camp, but I'd have to pull the plat up to look. But I think it actually goes a little bit further, but it still is a dead end at some point. So it extends beyond the property in question, even though physically it might not look like it if you go out there.
One access point out.
Correct.
So the overall idea, if I get it, is that you want two home sites and they want to try to split that creek frontage to the north.
Well, yeah, I think that's right. You know, the real plan is they want two home sites and then they want a shared
corridor,
a shared enjoyment of the waterfall between the two home sites. You know, I mean, so yeah, it's
that's one of the more irregular plans I've seen. I understand the methodology.
Yeah, they're just trying to preserve, if you will, Thunderhead Falls, so that you know, it's out there. It's said it's a retail store, but my understanding is that once they stop the operation of Thunderhead Falls with the zoning that exists, that is no longer available as a commercial use.
Was that property auctioned off in the last couple of years? Thought I saw
It's got a bit of a confusing history. There's one little parcel that belonged to the family that is in the estate that was auctioned. That was up closer to the highway. This piece was sold through a negotiated transaction. And then there's a parcel across the road to the south, and I think it is 23099 on that map. That 23099 was recently sold at an auction.
Okay.
But the 23098, is it? That one is actually 4 small lots. One large lot and the smaller buildable lot, and then 2 little slivers. the one triangle that you see in the middle of the south boundary there, just below the number 23098. And then curiously enough, it doesn't show up here, but if you look below to 23097, then there's a little tiny sliver, a triangle there to the left of that. The purchase of these lots together actually also included that little sliver across the road. And for the life of me, I've done a lot of study on behalf of the clients on the planning history of this to make sure we understood. Can't for the life of me figure out that little sliver to the south. Best I can come up with is this: is the creek is there, and the parcel to the left of that little sliver to the south is the Salvation Army. So it looked to me as though they were perhaps trying to plant a parcel on one side of the creek away from the other side, and maybe tie it to the 23097 lot, but it never got finished.
So if you went way back, they originated as mineral surveys?
What you have are two mineral surveys, number 244 and I think 1442, if I remember correctly. And those two mineral surveys wind around with the creek in a very, very complex interface that pre-existed the location of Thunderhead Falls Road. So you'd have, it's a little bit bewildering trying to track which piece was in which. But yes, there are two mineral surveys. The land generally in this area to the south is one mineral survey. The land generally to the north is another. So the little tiny triangle that's in the middle of this, just below the number 23098, that's actually an orphaned piece from the south mineral survey. And that when they planted the road got put on the other side of the road, so to speak. So that little lot was there just because of the way they put the road.
They were probably plaster surveys?
Two of them, yeah, two different. They actually have different names. I'd have to dig up my map but essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're mineral surveys of one form or another.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Sumner? Couple things. This had came up before, and I was on the planning commission when this first came up, and then you made it 2 lots instead of, I think, 4 or 5. There's no alternative escape route for fire or flooding, and I was here through the 72 flood. It would be interesting to know how many of these homesteads or these plats got taken out from that flood. I have no idea, but there's 57 lots served, and this has been platted since the 1960s. So, in one sense, it's like, okay, you should be able to do what you want with your land, but I brought up the Salvation Army camp on this issue as well, and had them do an emergency access. What would happen? And you got 57 lots. Bottom line is who they're going to pick and choose in emergency services, who to save and who not with one access, because that's a lot of lots to try to save that many people, and I don't see how you're going to do it, especially because this is the only area that has this issue. But then I also believe that, you got to know that when you're buying this land. And if you want to take your family or yourself into risk when it's flooding or there's a fire, you also have to take that personal responsibility for that. So I kind of fight between if it's right to increase and it's wrong, and say, I know this, I'm going in there, and if that happens, it's my fault. But then it's also, then, is it our fault because we just keep saying it's okay to just build there, knowing that our first responders, there's no way that I believe they can take all those people and be able to save all their lives at that point with a fire or a flooding. So I'm willing to listen to the discussion, but it's just kind of a crazy thing for a person to have to decide what is the best thing for an area that you could be very problematic. So,
If I might just respond one simple thing.
yes, sir, Mr. Sumner.
Of course, we're presenting this that we're not seeking to increase density. We're just taking two existing lots and reshaping them.
Right.
But the other thing I would mention is, the concerns you mentioned are very real, and I can guarantee you that the prospective owners of these 2 lots, or Mr. Scheer for sure, shares the concern. Okay, and so it's realistic issue.
So those
But
two,
at the same time, you know, if it's a public safety issue and there are 57 lots and you shouldn't make one owner of one lot bear the, you know, be the problem child, if you will, for a bigger question, you know. We just want to take two buildable lots, redraw the line, so we still have two buildable lots. We're not seeking to increase the density. And it's, you know, we would play our part in trying to help solve the safety problem, but it shouldn't be on the burden of placed on one landowner to cure a problem that's got 57 pieces to it.
but adding to that issue would be our issue. The other is, are they both going to be they're both owning lots on here, so both their families are gonna live on these lots? Or are they selling them to somebody else?
Well, you know, their plan is to own the lots and to use them
For their own personal
for their own
use?
personal use, correct.
Okay,
But they own houses elsewhere.
okay.
You know, I don't
Just,
wanna,
you know, if, to me, that kind of makes the decision as well, if I'm gonna go sell it to somebody else, or I'm gonna say, okay,
nobody lives forever, you
yes.
know.
That's the bottom line right there. If you know the consequences before it happens, so.
As it happens, the Schiermeisters are the prospective buyers of the second lot. And they also own a house presently over in Hysiga. Which if the map were to swing right a little bit, you'd hit their other house. And if you were to try to, they would sell that house and build this one. And if they were to try to extend Thunderhead Falls to connect up with the Hysiga Road, which would be the logical second access, you still have a lot of creek crossings. You know?
Well, my bottom line is for future reference for me, I'm gonna actually go look and see what areas got taken out from that flood, because people never think, it's never gonna happen to them, bottom line. But if they're showing me also that they're gonna be living in that space and then, they have an understanding of what's going on there, that's a little bit different. I don't know if I agree with it, but, it makes my perspective a little bit different on the vote, so. Any other discussion, Commissioner?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy first, Mr. Roskinek.
No, I totally agree with some of the discussion and questions that Ms. Hackard had. And I think we've had that at the Planning Commission. The same issue that you talked about, and we went through it pretty heavily, I think, and pretty thorough at the Planning Commission. And I just like to remind that staff recommended approval, and at the Planning Commission recommended approval with 8 conditions. So I just wanted to pass on with the Planning Commission since I've sat through both.
Thank you. Commissioner Roskinek.
Madam Chair, I bought a house that went through the flood of 72, further up by Johnson Siding. And I'm assuming that if these lots get approved, that whoever builds those homes, they're going to build them in a fashion, in a location where they're going to probably be safer than homes were in the 72 flood, just from that lesson.
Good point.
So fundamentally, I'm in favor. We're not increasing any density, so personally, I'm in favor of the rezone.
And as I'm standing here, I'm thinking we probably got our speaker request in the wrong order. I should have had Shannon speak
That's
first.
okay. We'll have Shannon speak now, sir. No, let's hear what you got to say, Shannon. Come on. Tell me some of the stuff that, Shannon, we've been speaking about, maybe those concerns and stuff that, basically, we understand what's happening here. You've listened to the discussion. What do you have to say about some of the discussion, Shannon?
Yes, I think, I just want to point out a few things. I think Mr. Sumner covered most of it, everything. Can I do the drawing part on that? I think the point I just want to make is again, where the owners currently can receive 2 building permits. So we're not increasing the density. We're just trying to do the best that we can to create the best 2 building lots on this property. So, and by doing that, I just want to really make sure everybody understands where that line that I'm drawing there, Everything against the gray, that's the floodplain area. That, so everything from that red line to the road is basically in sense, that's our building area that we have to work with for these lots. So, and considering in this area, it's a pretty decent building area, and the homeowners that are proposing to build on these lots are working directly with me. Actually, my name is Shannon Bosmas from Baseline Surveying. So, and they have taken the steps to, we have gotten an engineer involved. We've done the flood studies required in that area to come up and, so we can determine the exact point, of the 100-year floodplain, so that we can, therefore, that we can place the lots or the house and the septic and the wells in plan that whole building site area out, so they meet the requirements for FEMA and in Meade County, or Pennington County.
So Shannon, what do you do for septics when you're that close to the floodway?
Basically, as staff recommended, but basically you got to use a tank, and you have to have your, your separations from streams. So that's my job and the engineer's job to make sure that's all laid out, according to the requirements. So,
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Vasnix?
If I'm reading this right, excuse me, Madam Chair. If I'm reading it right, they're gonna have shared access then?
correct. Yep.
Okay. Do you have a motion or question?
Move to approve with the 8 conditions.
Second.
Moved by LaCroy, second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for taking it from 4 lots to 2 lots, guys. Committee reports. Commissioner LaCroy.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you, Miss Cassie.
One of the reports I have, as you guys know, I was on planning commission. There's no report. That was standard. One other meeting I attended was the Community Health Board, and that was normal business, so there's nothing to report on that one. We did attend our Black Hills Association County Commission's meeting and fill up and presented our resolutions, and the Black Hills District approved our resolutions with the addition of the tribe added to the mental health part. So that was approved with the amendment, and at that meeting, we had the 2% sales tax from Meade County brought back up, and Black Hills approved that. I rode the bike today, so I didn't bring the paperwork. I left it in my truck. I'm trying to remember the other ones we had, Gary. We had the Meade.
District side of it?
Yeah, we had Meade County.
The,
Delinquent property taxes.
Delinquent, yeah.
yeah, delinquent property tax.
Yeah, and the delinquent property tax. We had, well, one of ours was duplicate to the 2%, so, but ours was the mental health. So the Black Hills approved that, and that was a good meeting. It actually went fairly well. One of the discussions that we did have towards the end is Bob gave a little report on what was going to happen next with the resolutions, but then he also gave a report on NACO and what in the Las Vegas conference, which sparked some conversation within the group, and we kind of had a good discussion about that. And even our Black Hills group meeting 4 times a year determined that that's a great way to get together and meet the auditors and treasurers and everybody, because we don't get to see everybody that often. So even that group's good. But there was some great discussion as far as that went. The next thing I attended also was, I didn't make the ag picnic. I wanted to make the ag picnic, but I was wore out by the time it come around. We were replacing a roof that day right across from the fairgrounds. Should have went over there and ate, but yeah, it was pretty close. But next thing I did is I attended the Native American Indian community meeting at Mother Butler Center. I know that's not something that was assigned to me, but after our last meeting, Ryan Whitefeather had invited me to the meeting to discuss some of the issues with IHS and some other things. It was very enlightening. There was about 50 people there. The meeting went to about 9 o'clock at night, started at 6 or 5 or 6, somewhere around there. Both these meetings run that long. But it was a fairly good meeting. I didn't know I was on the agenda. I got put on the agenda. But so I gave a presentation. They asked about the input that I'd requested for Suzanne. And they had the letter out there, and they were very appreciative of the commission. And I explained to them what happened and so forth. They were very appreciative of the stance that the commission took, and I explained how it got to where it did and so forth. So that was a very good meeting. They had representatives from the Rosebud Sioux Tribe, Cheyenne River, quite a few people. So it was a pretty good turnout. So that went well. Another one I finished up with was the Collective Healing Initiative. That's part of the MacArthur grant that Richard Bernstein is in fostering. He's from Brookings, and he's working on relationships. And what that group has been doing has been trying to find out, taking input on relationships with police officers with the Native community. And so we've been working on this for, I bet you, probably 5 months, and compiled a bunch of information. And at this point, we're getting ready to present it to the police department. So what our meeting was this last time was Stuart Huntington, which he's leaving. Does everybody know that? Yeah. I was disappointed too, but he was doing a video for us. And so what we spent the evening doing 3 or 4 hours is taking the information and the input that we've gotten, and we each did a video shot, and he's going to make a video for YouTube of what the group would come up with better ways to have race relations or communications with the police department and so forth. And we're going to send it to the police department and put it on YouTube and get feedback on it. So it's been a long time coming, and a lot of great work. And Stuart, I just can't say enough about how much work he's put in with this group. He's been there at every meeting, and has had great input. And this is one of the things that he really wanted to do too. So that was
Stuart, say about him, he has been to the reservations and things that have seen him at the reservations on the funerals in different areas. So I think he's grew in his knowledge of the Native people and a love of the Native people. So I think that's pretty cool how he helped you guys move that, because I didn't know he did as much work on the reservations and stuff till I started visiting with him. So Lloyd, you're right. He's a good man to help.
Yeah, it's amazing. Me and him went and talked and with other people, and he's very initiative to what's going on, and he's very moved by the culture and appreciative of it. So that's what, when I go to some of these other meetings, I just explain to people, this one I was put on the agenda, and it says Commissioner LaCroix, but I don't go as a commissioner. I go as a citizen. And although my label is commission, no matter where I go, I don't speak out at some of these meetings for the simple fact that I'm a commissioner. I'm there to listen. One of the things I do stress that these guys know when I'm at these meetings is that, and what I've gathered from all these meetings, community meetings I've been to, is that people correct their own people in the group, so I don't have to do it. But one of the biggest themes that I've seen coming from some of these groups is the judgment. Don't judge people by what they're wearing. I mean, our nature is our first judgment is when we see somebody, what they're wearing determines how you're going to treat them, and it does. I mean, if somebody's coming up in a business suit, you're going to approach them different than somebody that comes up with mud on their boots and full of dirt. I mean, and from these groups, what they're trying to say is get to know me before you judge me. And that's the biggest thing that I've gotten out of all these groups is take the time to get to know me before you judge me. And if we could do that, we could all do a lot better job of our relationships, and it goes both ways. So that's one of my spots that I did for the TV was to be able. I think we need to recognize police officers who do work with the Native youth. You know, the Native community needs to appreciate what they do and appreciate them. Too oftenly, police departments and other community members are judged by the actions of 1 out of 300. And we can't do that. So that's what's making some of these meetings good and why I go to them. And it's all associated with the civil rights one also, taking those. But so that's one piece I leave you guys with is I just wanted to express that I'm respectful at these meetings because I know they see me as a commissioner. Some of them do and some don't. But if you take anything out of it, just judge before you get to know them.
Commissioner DeSanto?
I have no committee reports to report. However, I would like to thank Lloyd for what he just talked about. I think that it's important for him or for us to go to those types of meetings and get a feel for what's going on. So thanks, Lloyd. And God did give us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so it's always better than speaking.
Good point. Commissioner Roskill?
Well, let's see. If I go in order of the month, I guess the 17th, I met Connie Olson. She asked me if I'd tour the new campus that they're building, and so I told her I'd meet her at 9 o'clock in the lobby, and so at 9 o'clock my phone went off, and she said, "Where are you at?" And I said, "I'm in the lobby," and she said, "Well, so am I." So then I found out there's a campus on Adams Street. So
And what campus
after I
is
got
this?
to Adams Street, I toured the campus and just,
Okay.
it's a very impressive facility. Just a few facts, it's gonna be roughly 100, it's gonna add 100,000 square feet plus at a cost of about 14.9 million. And it's just amazing when you go through there, the programs that they got and the way they're designing that space, you know, where they can have fathers come in and spend time with their kids. And it's stuff that I didn't even know about. It's just, it was very touching and need to stay more involved with that program. Economic impact, 70 plus new jobs, more than 10 million in grant funding that turns over in our community, a minimum of 4 times. This will have 14 infant, toddler classrooms, 7 preschool classrooms, and 6 school-age classrooms. They got a lot of kitchen area. I told them that the sheriff might have some used kitchen equipment because they got a lot of, they cook a lot of meals. So that was, and I asked Holly to put all these in your inboxes so that you could see the floor plan on that.
Thank you.
On the 22nd of July, Joe and I and Mark went to the Rochford Volunteer Fire Department, and we held a forum on the South Rochford Road for the locals to give them an update on where we're at, answer questions. And then in attendance, we had KLJ Engineering, and that would be relative to the bridge design, and that's going to be the first part of that project is to get a new bridge, and that right now seems to be the largest obstacle. And Ron Bangs with Interstate Engineering, he had plans for about 9.5 miles of how that road's going to lay. It's going to be a 28-foot, 4-inch concrete or asphalt mat. So it was informative, and if you want more information, you can read last week's Hill City Prevailer, and we put some pictures in there and some dialogue. So
nice.
We got that in the paper. Lastly, on the 24th of July, I met with Joyce Sugru from Silver City. We talked a lot about the Silver City Fire District and how they interact with Rochford and maybe how they could expand in the future. I know that area pretty good, so we talked about the fire district quite a bit, and then we got into some vacation home rental information, and I asked her if she'd like to participate. I'd like to put some articles in the paper relative to vacation home rentals so that we can answer a lot of those cloudy questions out there. And Joyce asked me to extend an invitation to the Silver City Historical Society at the schoolhouse on Saturday the 17th at 6:30 for anybody that should happen to get to Silver City on the 17th. And with that, that's all we got.
Mr. Drews?
Just to carry on a little bit with what Ron was saying about the Youth and Family Services, Friday night, my wife and I were able to be a part of the Bikers Against Bullies charity ride, which the local hog group, Harley Owners Group, we escorted them into Deadwood, and that was kind of impressive because there was probably about 80 motorcycles in a line that showed up in Deadwood. Did a tour of Cadillac Jack's parking lot first before we started parking, and then the Bradskys fed us all. This charity ride serves this is mostly, I think the ride originated out of California. There's riders from probably all over the country, but they pay into this charity fundraiser, and they have decided that for the last 3 years, they've given, I think, half the funds that they raised to Youth and Family Services, and this year, the other half is going to the Special Olympics. And so they raised several $1,000s to help. I think in the last 2 years, Youth and Family Services has received $52,000 from that group. So it's a great group to be a part of, and you know, they just want to ride and they want to be around Sturgis and the Black Hills area for a few days. So it's a good event. Also, last week I attended the Pennington County DUI Court and Pennington County Drug Court commencement ceremony. Not something that I had probably really planned on doing, but got an invite to go to it. There was 4 graduates coming out of that group. There was probably over 100 people in attendance at that. Pretty impressive. They talked about, the 4 graduates talked about what they've gone through themselves personally, how they ended up in the drug court, and I think it was very much appreciated what they had to say and the fact that they was going through a commencement exercise for it. Lloyd talked a little bit about the County Commissioners Association. Yesterday in Pier, we had both the resolution committee met, and they have changed that slightly so that the entire board of directors sits as the resolution committee on that. And so we heard the various resolutions from around the state, including the ones that Commissioner LaCroix talked about, adopted a plan to move forward for legislative activities this coming year with those resolutions. And it was good conversation relative to them. I think all of the, there was about 7 or 8, I think, resolutions altogether. I think when it came down to it, all of them received unanimous support. So they were well thought out, well put together, and give some direction for where the counties want to go. Then also following that, the regular board of directors meeting was held. We did hear quite a bit about Holly and Commissioner Hadcock being in Las Vegas, things that you guys haven't told us about. But, no. There was some conversation about what had taken place there, what they enjoyed, and some of the knowledge that they came back with. In addition, they talked about the spring workshop for the counties was canceled this year because of weather conditions, but they've kind of rolled that into what's going to take place at the county convention in September. And so for those that missed that planned on going, I know Commissioner Ross Connect planned on going to that. At the county convention, you can pick up on some of those things that were missed at that point in time, in addition to other things. Also, the county convention is going to be a Mardi Gras style. So Commissioner Hadcock, I expect you to have your uniform or dress code. So, and that's essentially all I have.
Can I add a little bit? Gary, the only thing that, from the peer meeting is our resolution, they asked us if we were okay, they struck, Western South Dakota on our resolution to make it, they kind of wanted to make it, it's a big picture thing, but they respectfully, what the person asked me and Gary if we were okay with it, and we felt for the resolution, it was, for the big picture, we thought it was okay.
Yeah, they recognize that we have our issues out here, but they're saying that overall, the legislature needs to understand that we're all having issues. It's not strictly a Western South Dakota, it's a Brown County, Beetle County, Cottington County. Everybody is expressing the same kind of concerns that we are also, so.
Very good.
Thank you. Couple of things. We had a mayoral meeting with two council members, Chad Lewis and Laura Armstrong, and the mayor, and Mrs. Wood on a few items. We're looking for a solution, how we make better relationships and get solutions done through the counties, maybe like on the roads with our highway superintendent, how we can join those together and just some different areas we could work on and look at and find better areas that we can communicate in. I thought it was a pretty good meeting, Garrett. And then one of the goals this year, at least for me and Gary, and I thought it would help our commission, is to start going to the different cities and see what their goals and what their expectations of Pennington County is in their cities. So we had went out and met with Box Elder, and as you know, this commission is moving forward on a TIF to help the sales tax and improve the area of Box Elder. And then we went to Keystone, Gary and I did, and met with Quinn and Cassandra. Cassandra is their human relations. Am I correct?
Finance officer,
Finance officer, and then their public works guy that's name's Jerry. We went and toured the wastewater treatment plant, which, believe it or not, was very exciting. I remember touring Rapid Cities before, and just the different techniques they use in the counties than they do in the cities. They kind of coincide, but they haven't upgraded there. And anything we could do to help them, maybe with some of the sewer and water issues, or how we could work with Black Hills Council to kind of move that forward. They have been a little bit already. We both looked at some riparian areas and some stuff underneath the bridges. We're going to bring Ron Ross Connect, because it's his district, into that area to see how highway department and other areas can work together and try to figure out some of those areas that are needing help. Some of that road is deteriorated right next to, or some of the creeks have deteriorated right next to the road on Old Highway, or Old Hill.
Hill City Road.
Yep. So the next meeting, Commissioner Ross Connect, anytime we go into you guys' districts, we'll have a follow-up with you, like Quinn and Wall, our goals as well, and start seeing what their goals and areas are, and then defer back to the commissioners in that areas to help and be at those meetings or just do follow-ups with you. We also did that with the department heads this year, and we've got a bunch of different goals that we have moved forward with our department heads, just to see what they thought and how the commission could help them move forward. And this commission already has. We're a great team. This commission is at getting things done, and different areas of our interests have moved us forward in itself, with Mr. LaCroix and some of his interests, Ross Connect, and just the different areas that we all like. We go to our meetings, we get things done, and we've showed the public, I think, that we're a true team. So I've enjoyed that, and then the department heads have said the same. What a joy to work with this team that we've had this year. So just some compliments to you. NACO, boy, that was a different experience. I've never been to Las Vegas, but the networking was amazing. As Collie with South Dakota and Louisiana and just California and just the different people that are sharing with us on the transportation and infrastructure issues. We have a lot in common, so believe it or not, you can network and you can get really good ideas from these conferences. The broadband areas that people have, I had a lady, since I'm not good on phones, she put test it. If you guys haven't put that on your phone, just check the broadband on your phones. But just the different things they talked about in broadband, trying to expand in South Dakota. I think the governor has been looking into that, some of those areas as well. Criminal justice, I always like anything to do with criminal justice, so I went to most of those meetings. We in South Dakota, we might have 110,000 to 120 in Pennington County, but we are way ahead of the game. I'll just tell you from listening to these different counties, even Las Vegas, they have 2 deputies that do the job of what our care campus is doing, and they're trying to convince people that if to do defer, or what do you call the word? So people don't end up in jail, diversion. I always call it detention for some reason, diversion programs. I said, call Kevin Tome, call Barry Tice. The money you save by doing diversion instead of putting people in jail is amazing. So I had spoke up at some of the meetings after listening and then told them about our care campus. And then we did have a care campus, one of our ladies on crisis care, talk about it, but it did not hit. I think it missed a bunch of the areas that we are way ahead on people. I know they're doing triage in Sioux Falls, but I told them to look into what we were doing because we've proven in the last few years and just the people that we have running, like Barry and the sheriff and others, that mental illness is also coming up in that area, and we need to get ahead of that game. Whether it's Pennington County working with the states and the feds, there's something that needs to be done, and the other states have had the same issues. And it's funny, in 110,000 person county is the same as those $1 million counties. That's what that's why that's so important of that networking and figuring out. And I'll keep saying, in a $110,000 person county, you'd be surprised how far ahead we are. We're South Dakota, and a lot of people make fun of that sometimes, or just how many people are here. When you listen, and I went to like at least 4 or 5 of those classes, how far that this care campus and some of the things that the sheriff has done with his jails and different stuff, and even Sioux Falls, like, holy cow, they came here and they're like, wow. So a lot of the places I told them to come visit South Dakota or come visit what we do, and they'd be surprised because they were excited to hear what we were, how far ahead we were. So it gets you excited that you're from South Dakota or Rapid City. You get excited that your staff is that amazing and that they helped move these things forward just from their own information and going around to these networking areas in different states. Sometimes we say, oh, that travel is just not good. You could do it in your own state. But the care campus and the sheriff and stuff, they have went to different areas, and especially Joe Harris too, just to see what the issues are, and then brought those back and then implemented that. So that's pretty exciting. So enough about that, and I'd like to also thank this commission about the took 2 years and 6 months for us to move forward on that stall barn, and I thought it was important for us that it was important enough to move forward with Mr. Cole and Mr. Kaiser in where we are today. And we did have a lot of community input, and a lot of people volunteered their time for this stall barn. So I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in that, and this board. At this point, we'll see what those bids come in at, but just moving this forward so we can build up that event for stock show and ag for our community. So thank you again for doing that.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick.
speaking of the little communities, I did attend a meeting yesterday with the mayor of Hill City, Jim Scull, their public works director, and Anyhow, Jim's we're trying to get him to invest in Hill City and probably do 134 single-family homes that would be affordable, or just having a home, just being able to buy a home in Hill City. Right now, the biggest obstacle is their water supply and water pressure in certain parts of the city. So yesterday, we looked at a plan developing a new water tower. It'll be 35-foot footprint, go up maybe 60, 70 feet. So
Wow.
I'm kind of staying in the loop on that one, too.
And Mr. Roskinek, they're also looking at that in Keystone. So I forgot to tell you, they were talking about affordable housing. And we did visit the volunteer fire department with Paul Johnson. They got a new vehicle, a structural one. He got it for a heck of a price because he's from Aberdeen. And they got it from Aberdeen, if you remember, Gary. That was pretty awesome. That's big, huge. That's big structural or structured fire engine. So he got it for about half the price for the fire department there. So that was pretty cool. But we also missed Miss Holly in NACO and some of the information she would like to share that she thought was pretty cool about going to NACO and National League.
Yeah, I mean, the trip was amazing. The flight, not so much, but the first day I did public lands, went and listened to some of the counties and the struggles that they have with BLM and Forest Service, and it just amazes me how we all have the same issues. It's just a different location. The second day I did the Census Bureau and cybersecurity. I read a lot of articles on ransomware attacks and the governments, and there was one session that I was in that they asked the people to raise their hands on how many of their counties had been attacked, and it was well over half of the counties have experienced ransomware and the struggles that their commissions went through on whether we pay it, whether we don't. Um, and the policies and procedures that they've had to put in place because of those attacks. And so that was really enlightening. The third day, I found the county managers group. And the county manager from Coconino, Arizona, kind of took me under his wing. And I mean, that's Flagstaff. And to listen to those individuals and working at the pleasure of the boards and how they, I don't envision us ever being like them and that big, but just to hear how they structure themselves and how they carry out, serving the needs of millions of people. The county manager from El Paso was just amazing to listen to, and the immigration challenges that they're having and the stresses that it puts on a county. And I mean, stuff that I would never think about just listening to mainstream media. So that was a really good third day. And then the last day was general session and meetings and voting. And the whole thing was overwhelming. I've never been to something that big before with that many thousands of people and being spread across, two hotels. But the voting process was just crazy with that second vice president and, the tension in the room with Texas and how many votes that they carried. And it was a really cool conference, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for allowing me to go and participate in that. It was really eye-opening, and I learned a lot. So
Thanks, Miss Holly. And just the networking with your other county administrators, I thought that was pretty cool. I think they need more of that in NACO with individual areas of the county staff and commissioners, where we all can do that networking, but it's nice to have us all in a room being able to speak on different things that are issues. But the bottom line is what I learned is the laws and the regulations to protect counties is the biggest thing on there, because they bring forth those laws through the federal and the state to help each of our counties. And it's huge for us to be at some of that, because if we don't get on some of those boards, is what I was going to tell people. If you're interested on some of that stuff, try to get on the boards. Talk to people like Jim and others from Sioux Falls, Lincoln, to get on some of those boards to fight for South Dakota or fight for what our county needs are. That's where I learned probably the most, and that's something I like and I think many of you guys would like, is to get on some of those boards and be able to change some of those rules and laws and regulations for our state and our counties. That makes sense, so.
Now, if I remember right, to get on some of those boards, you have to come with a recommendation from the state board. Am I right,
I
Gary?
think for some of them, I don't think.
Not all of them, but, and
You got a specific one that you want to be on, state board can certainly help you get there.
yeah.
And I think Jim is on that or something, because he was saying,
Yeah.
when I was there, and I'm sure anybody, not just me, he said, Deb, which ones would you like? And I need to go through some of those things and see where our likes and dislikes are in those
Yeah,
areas.
I think you're right. There's a couple different ones, but to get to the state, we'd have to look at it.
But he said he was on that he could move us forward if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, oh, I forgot about Clint. He was awesome. He's been on, in
Clint
county
Garland.
for 45 years. I've known him from also I know what's his wife's brother's wife or something. And he was just, to listen to him, I just sat there and had conversation with him, and Gary's laughing at me, but he was just interesting to listen to on some of his stuff, because he's been in there so long. If you want to know some history and some stuff, and he's got a great sense of humor.
Got a lot of jokes.
Yeah, but he also has a lot of that history and knowledge that a lot of people aren't really getting, and he was interesting to listen to. I'd tell Gary some of his stuff, and we'd just start laughing on some, and others just like, wow. But he's been on there a long time. I didn't know somebody has been on there that long, but it's all good. So anyway, how about anything else we missed, folks? So let's go to approval of vouchers. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Drews,
Second.
second by Ross Connect. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Number 23 is number 22, Tanchi, so please come up and visit if you'd like. Tell us some of your concerns today.
Well, good afternoon. I have not an earth-shattering grievance, but it is a grievance nonetheless, and I don't know who to bring it to, so I'm bringing it to you folks. About the last 3 weeks, I've been working to try and help someone that needs to collect signatures for an issue. And a couple of those days, I was out front here. Last week, I figured the 31st and the 1st would probably be pretty good traffic days. So I was here most of the day, the 31st. And then on the 1st, I actually got rained out eventually. But what happened was, now you all know me, and you all know that many times I've been up front working on public issues and collecting signatures. And I really try to notice who is likely to be an employee here. And I don't want to hassle those folks, you get to learn the faces, and even if you don't know the faces, there are certain things. If they leave the building with nothing in their hands, they're probably an employee. So I don't approach them, and I apologize if I do. So I was standing there, and one lady came out. She had a little an iPod or something clipped. She was listening to music with earbuds, and she was shaking her head no. So I figured she was indicating to me that, yeah, she's an employee and I probably shouldn't ask her. So I shook my head, yeah, and I said, "How you doing?" And she walked past me, stopped, turned around, took an earbud out, and said, the people that work in this building are pretty damn sick of seeing you people out here with petitions. And I was taken aback. I said, "Excuse me?" And it was a rhetorical question, but she did repeat it. And, you know, it really was an insult. I think I responded, well, that's too bad. And it is too bad that somebody who works here, whose wages are paid by people who pay taxes, I was trying to help someone who is a taxpayer. The irony is I was trying to help him fulfill a county mandated requirement. And that's the way I was treated. So I don't know, again, who to complain to, but I do think that that is totally improper decorum. If I were harassing someone out there as a circulator, I would expect you to dispatch me. I mean, we've had those conversations before, and you've had situations to deal with before. But to have someone presume to speak for all the employees in this building, I know differently. I know a lot of the people that work in this building, and as you said earlier, you do have good staff. It really was an insult. It felt like harassment and intimidation, and you know, it didn't dissuade me from staying, but it really shouldn't happen. Not here, not at a public building. So that's why I sat through your meeting and wanted to bring this to your attention. I can't tell you the woman's name. I think I could pick her out of a lineup, but I do think that that is something that maybe needs to be addressed with employees. I hate to say that you need a blanket thing because, you know, I would prefer that only the guilty party be approached. But because I don't know her name, I can't tell you who it is. So that's just something maybe you can discuss amongst yourselves, how to handle it. I do think something needs to be done about that.
Thank
So,
you, Donji.
you bet. Thank you. So,
Any other discussion? We're in executive session. We need a motion for one is.
So move.
Yeah,
Executive session
for
personnel and
SDCL.
legal.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Drews, second by DeSanto. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is that a yawning aye? Okay, we're ready. Motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Drews,
Second.
second by LaCroy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Can we have a first motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I would
Drews.
move that we move Superintendent Miller from grade 25, step 1 to grade 25, step 3.
We have a motion by Drews,
Second.
second by Roskinick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is a motion to approve the contract with Rasicki Plumbing and Ditching to abate a nuisance in amount of $2,056 for soil treatment and placement of new soil under the mobile home located at 4760 Greenfield Lane. Do we have a motion? Moved by LaCroy,
Second.
second by Roskinick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved by Roskinick, second by LaCroy. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.